Opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It's a day of reckoning for the Southport killer.
Axel Rudakubana will be sentenced today for the murder of 3 little girls, Alice de Silva Aguirre, BB King and Elsie Stankham.
As a public inquiry begins to get to the root of how so many red flags were missed.
A measure of justice has been done, but for the victims, the injured and the affected, we must see a fundamental change in how Britain protects its citizens and its children.
Shock new statistics. An estimated 1 million people are living illegally in the UK, with up to 1 in 12 London residents thought to be illegal migrants.
An incredibly rare tornado warning comes into force for parts of England. Find out how you'll be affected.
Ahead of Storm Eowyn, an unsettled day today before some very lively weather arrives during tomorrow. I'll have the very latest on the storm and what you can expect in the weather.
NIMBYs look away now. The government overhauled planning rules in a bid to get Britain building. We'll be talking to the Minister for Housing about that just after 9 a.m.
There's new research out this morning. More adults are smoking and vaping. We're asking, is vaping a gateway to smoking?
Later on in the programme, we meet one inspiring lady who's gained the admiration of Queen Camilla, and it's all thanks to bees.
And in the sport this morning, Manchester City capitulate in the Champions League against Paris Saint-Germain, while Celtic and Arsenal win. I have the Iga Swiatek double bounce furore from the Australian Open. And, yes, Lewis Hamilton has tested his new Ferrari, and it's very nice. and it's rather fast.
What more do you need? It's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast. So what do you like on your toast in the morning, you two? If you had to choose a spread, would it be your jam, your marmalade?
Really boring. Just have butter.
The butter.
But lashings of it.
I do like butter. Oh, Marmite.
You like Marmite? Oh, I like peanut butter. Crunchy. Has
Nice.
to be crunchy.
Oh, yeah, good.
How
That's good for you, though, isn't it? Peanut butter. It's supposed to be good for you.
Well, it's
Apparently.
full of fat.
Oh, so is it not?
You shouldn't have a lot of it. I don't think.
Okay, fine.
But I can't help myself. Anyway, forget marmalade on toast. The new thing is coffee spread on toast.
Coffee?
Yes. It's a Swiss invention, and it's called the coffee paste. And it's a dark roast paste.
Nice name.
Yeah, where'd you get that name from?
I don't know.
Let's call it the coffee paste.
Extortionate.
Oh, well, of course it is.
£14 for a tube, could you believe?
For a tube? What is it, like toothpaste?
It's like a metal tube, it comes like in a toothpaste.
Well, you squirt it out on your toast?
Yeah.
100-gram tube, so it is like a toothpaste.
Right.
It's like a toothpaste.
A little bit bigger.
Yeah,
Right.
and it's sweetened with organic beet sugar. So you spread it on your toast from the toothpaste tube, or you can put it in a cup, this coffee spread, and add hot water and it becomes a coffee as well.
Right.
It's a Swiss thing, and apparently in Switzerland, they put everything into tubes. Meat.
Do they? Meat in tubes?
Yeah, fish, everything.
Do they really?
Yeah.
Fancy a sardine for dinner?
Yeah.
Aluminium tubes are used from everything, apparently. Mayonnaise, meat, and even fish. Put it all in a spread. There you are.
Well, frankly, it sounds
I'm not sure
disgusting.
it's going to catch on.
Did you have one of those keys that on the toothpaste? Because maybe if it's expensive, obviously you want to eat every part of the coffee paste out.
Oh, I see, to squeeze the bottom out.
Yeah, do you remember those?
I remember
little
that.
thing. Well, the little, and then they used to turn them, so then it would squeeze every piece of toothpaste out.
They were for metal tubes, weren't they?
So these are not metal then?
Well, no, they might be, but now they're all plastic, aren't they?
So would it not still work, then do the turny business?
I don't know, probably unfold again.
Actually, I think you're probably right.
Yeah.
That's probably why they don't sell those anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm fascinated by this. Apparently, you don't even need to put it in the fridge. It just sits in the cupboard for up to 12 months.
Sweet coffee on toast.
You know what? I'm not overly
sold.
opposed to it. I think I may be happy to give that a go.
I like coffee, I like toast.
Yes.
But not together.
OK, fine.
Same. I wouldn't be sold, but then I've just read this sentence which may have changed my mind, which says some customers have even swirled it into espresso martinis. Now, I could be sold on that.
There we are. Squeeze some out into your posh glass.
Anyway, let us know what you're having on your toast this morning. gbnews.com/you'll say.
Right, on to the main news this morning, and child killer Axel Rudakubana will be sentenced later on this morning.
Well, Alistair Silver-Aguirre, BB King and Elsie Stankham were murdered in that vicious knife attack, you'll remember, at the Taylor Swift-themed dance class last July.
Well, on Monday, 18-year-old Rudakubana pled guilty to their murders, as well as to producing a biological toxin and being in possession of a PDF file called the Al-Qaeda Training Manual.
Well, GB News Home and Security editor Mark White looks at how the murderer was left unchecked to carry out his terrible crimes and how the nationwide riots that followed caused a political crisis.
In the aftermath of the horrific events in Southport, anger and disorder struck many communities. Amid a perception authorities were not disclosing key facts about teenage killer Axel Rudakubana, a young man with a violent and deeply disturbing mindset that saw him refer to the Prevent Counter-Extremism programme 3 times, as well as multiple other agencies. We now know, as confirmed by the Prime Minister this week, that information was withheld. Sir Keir Starmer said it was done to ensure any forthcoming trial would not be prejudiced.
The importance of the rule about not disclosing this information is to ensure that the trial can take place and that where an individual is guilty, they're held to account.
But with little official information in the aftermath of the stabbings, the void was filled with online speculation and rumour, which only compounded the sense of outrage and anger. Axel Rudakubana was first referred to the Prevent programme back in 2019 when he was just 13 years of age after he took a knife to his former school in Formby. It was one of 10 occasions he admitted carrying a knife at school. After being excluded, he returned and assaulted pupils with a hockey stick. He was open in discussing his desire to carry out a school massacre. Yet it seems because there was no apparent evidence that his views were aligned to any particular terrorist group or ideology, counter-extremism practitioners decided not to intervene. Police, the courts, youth justice, social services and other safeguarding agencies also failed to respond in any meaningful way as Rudakubana's downward spiral towards serious violence intensified. And other questions still remain unanswered. A week before the Southport attacks, the teenager's father pleaded with a local taxi driver not to drive him to his former high school, where it's thought he was planning to carry out an attack there. Despite the deadly toxin ricin and Al-Qaeda jihadist documents being discovered at his home just days after the attack, it took a further 3 months before a terror charge and a biological weapons charge were added to the indictment and the public informed. In the months ahead, a public inquiry may provide some answers. Today, the focus is on the length of time in prison the trial judge will decide is the most appropriate response to the most evil and horrific of crimes. Mark White, GB News, Merseyside.
OK, let's talk to former advisor to Boris Johnson, Oscar Reddrop, who's here. And obviously that sentencing being carried out at 11 o'clock, we'll have to see what happens there. However, what is shocking with this is the fact that so many safeguarding agencies didn't act on someone who was clearly a concern. Now, I know there's a national inquiry that's going to take place, but this has got to be addressed urgently, hasn't it?
It absolutely has, and we talk sometimes, particularly, for instance, with the demand that is out there for a national inquiry into grooming gangs, but occasionally, with an instance like this, it's not an inquiry we need. It is absolutely double-down action. I mean, that package, not to mark your own homework, but is brilliantly put together. I almost forgot just how emotive and how much anger and pain there is out there over this incident. I've found the press coverage of it over the last 24 hours, and obviously that will move along now with the sentencing today, really bizarre. I mean, to have all the front pages, this isn't political, it was pretty much widespread across all the newspapers yesterday about, pointing to Amazon and the ease of access to knives online. I mean, have we all gone mad? I mean, of course that's not good, of course that's not great, but that's not what those riots were about. That's not what the pain and anger is a result of. It's, as you said, Stephen, it was the consistent failings on, multi-layered failings to pick this up and to ultimately prevent one of the most tragic things that in my lifetime has happened in this country. And, Starmer had that press conference a couple of days ago. And in fairness, so with one hand I'll give, the other take away, but the media and the press really held his feet to the fire on what was known and when. And when you see the media in a press conference like that, and I've obviously worked in Number 10 during those press conferences, you can actually feel that these aren't journalists just going through the motions. They are reflecting public anger. And it is out there. It's out there.
But there's still questions remaining, aren't there? I mean, the finding of ricin at the home, that wasn't announced for 3 months until after Axel Rudakubana had been charged. And there's still really no explanation as to why that was.
That is one of the central reasons why there is so much anger and people feeling that they weren't in charge of the facts. And even to the extent, and I think it was Harry Cole at The Sun who, during that press conference this week, asked, I thought, a really astute question, which was, were the neighbours informed? Did those who literally lived on that street, Would they know that ricin
And an Al-Qaeda training manual PDF file.
Quite, Ellie. Were they aware? Were they kept abreast of the facts? And the Prime Minister just kind of swerved that one. So there's not even just the political anger of who knew what when, and you hear people throwing terms like cover up around, but there's a real kind of uber localized security point in terms of people literally in that vicinity. I mean, what were they told? Did they not have a right to know?
I hate to sound really cynical, but I was really cynical when I heard the announcement, the immediate announcement of a national inquiry into this. I mean, and it needs to be done, no question about that, but the fact it was announced so quickly compared to the fact that we're not getting a national inquiry so far, at least, into the rape gangs, I just wondered if there was anything political in that.
Often, and again, not being party political, because I'm sure, when the Conservatives, I can't think off the top of my head, but I'm sure when we were in power, there was probably similar political dynamics at play. But when a government resists a national inquiry, that probably means we need one. And when they proactively, without anyone asking for one, suggest that we should have one, that probably means they're trying to run away from something or defer something at the very least.
Because even the journalist at the press conference that you mentioned with Sir Keir Starmer earlier on this week made the point that he was DPP. He knows the failings. There's a long list of failings which he himself said jump out from the page. It's very obvious what went wrong here, that the safeguarding agencies didn't intervene when they should have done. Really, this is something that probably wouldn't need a national inquiry, whereas, as Stephen says, the grooming gangs seemingly so desperately does.
And so in kind of, if we shrink it all down to that point, Ellie, that is why I think so much pain and anger is out there amongst the British public, because for stuff that absolutely needs that public inquiry, that combing over, going back over an injustice that happened over many, many years, like the grooming gang stuff, they ain't going to get one. And then with something that actually they just want answers, information, access to that information and action, they're told, no, inquiry, long grass it, not for you. You don't need to know those facts just yet. And that's why there's so much anger out there.
Yeah. While we've got you here, Oscar, what do you make of this story in The Telegraph this morning? London's home to 585,000 illegal immigrants, 1 in 12 of London's population. Now, this is all down to some survey done by Thames Water, of all people, because the Home Office doesn't have any figures.
So, obviously, the fact that 1 in 12 people in the City of London, I think it's 1 million across the UK, are here illegally, is jaw-dropping, and that is a shocking statistic in itself. But you look at how we know this. Why do we know this? Is it, to your point, is it because the Home Office are really on it, they're on the ball, and they proactively want to communicate with the public about the extent to illegal immigration in this country? No. It was because of a freedom of information request that was put in by the Telegraph, I believe, so very good journalism there, that found that this survey, this secretive survey that Thames Water conducted because they wanted to find out usage, that's the only reason we know this. So that's kind of shocking in itself. And look, I mean, what does it mean? I mean, it's infrastructure. If you underestimate the population of a country, it's you guys talk about it by 1 million, and you guys talk about it all the time. We talk about the NHS, pressures on there, schooling, infrastructure, and actually, ultimately, it comes down to national security. The system is broken when you see stories like this, and the fact we only know it because of a freedom of information request, not because of the government's own statistics, is. It's very early in the morning, but it's stark stuff.
Yeah, it is. It all came back because Thames Water wanted to know the number of hidden and transient users for their services in order to help them meet demand. And it's the only reason that we know this story. It's shocking, isn't it? Oscar, good to see you. Thank you very much.
Guys.
See you in the next hour. No, we won't. Yes, we will.
We will.
Next hour.
We will indeed.
We will.
Today, our poll of the day is sticking with politics, as we know the economy is struggling at the moment. So we're asking, should the Chancellor prioritise reducing debt or economic growth? Which is it's actually a very interesting question. We'll bring you the results throughout the day. Stay tuned for that. Final result in Martin's show later. If you want to take part, go to gbnews.com/poll.
Now, at 6:16, let's take a look at some other stories coming to the newsroom this morning. And the fires in California have flared up again, with more than 30,000 people told to evacuate north of Los Angeles. The latest fire has been dubbed the Hughes Fire since the first outbreak at the beginning of January. 27 people have died and dozens are still missing.
A Russian spy ship has been warded off British waters by a Royal Navy submarine. The Defence Secretary confirmed the presence of the vessel yesterday before reiterating that Russia remains the most pressing and immediate threat to Britain.
Tributes are pouring in for a 12-year-old boy who was stabbed to death in Birmingham. Leo Ross has been described as funny and sweet by his teacher and was adored by his friends. A 14-year-old boy has been arrested on suspicion of murder.
Right, let's see what the weather's going to do for you, because it is grim. Here's Aidan McGivern.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A big change in the weather on the way. A spell of wind and rain today. That clears later. Then some even wetter and windier weather expected throughout Friday and Saturday, with Storm Eowyn moving in. Now, this system at the start of today isn't Storm Eowyn, but it is going to bring a spell of heavy rain across the country for a few hours, along with some very gusty winds, 50, 60 mile-per-hour wind gusts for southern and western England, as well as Wales. But it does move through. Brighter skies follow for Northern Ireland, Wales and the south by the end of the day, whilst the wet weather remains across Scotland and eastern England. Eventually, though, that tends to push northeastwards with clearing skies across the southern half of the UK. We're going to see temperatures fall away, lighter winds as well. So a fine end to Thursday, but quite a number of showers into North Wales, Northern England and Northern Ireland. And the most unsettled weather is expected at 6 p.m. across Scotland, with showers falling as sleet and snow over the hills. It's going to be blustery as well as the day comes to a close across Scotland. But overnight, those winds tend to ease, and with clear spells, temperatures fall away. A touch of frost likely for eastern and northeastern parts of the country, but that's only ahead of a very fierce low that's moving in overnight. This is Storm Eowyn, likely to bring widespread disruption by the start of Friday. Heavy rain, especially in the southwest, a spell of hill snow for northern England and Scotland. But the biggest cause for concern are the winds widely across the UK, away from the southeast, 60 or even 70 mile-per-hour wind gusts. But for Irish Sea coast, Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, through northern England and North Wales, the risk during the first half of Friday of 80 or 90 mile-per-hour wind gusts. That could cause serious disruption and damage in places.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, still to come, meteorologists warn that Storm Eowyn could be a danger to life. And I was also reading this morning that if you have a dog and you're out walking today, you have to keep them on the lead, because they're worried that the small dogs are going to get whisked up in the wind.
Ooh.
So you have to keep your dogs, well, either inside today or on a lead. So Rex has to be on a lead if you're taking him out today.
Take a lot of wind to lift him up.
That's true.
There you go.
He's more like a horse, so I think Rex would probably be okay
all
actually
right.
off the lead. But yes, if you're out walking the dog today, keep them on the lead. Or maybe just keep them inside and you can watch GB News Breakfast with me and Stephen. We'll be telling you all about the storm next.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
A woman of 53 has believed for 18 months she was in an online relationship with Brad Pitt.
I think we're seeing pictures. So these are the pictures that she received that made her believe that she was in this relationship with Brad Pitt.
And you'll see that some of it is in hospital because the scammer was claiming that he was suffering from cancer. This was playing very much on her emotion. So this is a divorcee who lived in Mauritius. She'd received a £700,000 divorce settlement, or £650,000 divorce settlement, I should say, and £700,000 has been taken from her through this scam.
Yeah.
As she was becoming, every time she became suspicious, the money was taken for payment of charges on gifts that she never received, and then hospital fees. There was lots of emotions being played into there. Now, as somebody, I'm a rom-com writer by trade, so I write romantic fiction. And one of the books I've written has actually been about somebody who did online dating, got herself into a whole heap of trouble. Not quite, she wasn't in a relationship with Brad Pitt, but she met somebody dodgy. So because I've written that book, I've met a lot of people who've come up to me and said, oh, it's happened to me.
It's scary in this digital age, isn't it?
They've lost 700,000, but somebody has tried it on. Somebody my question is, would a man go 18 months in a relationship online without seeing somebody and keep it going? Or is this feeding into this neediness of a particular demographic of a woman who that's better than anything else she got going on in her life, was what was being fed to her over the internet? I just
and then maybe a little bit of her knew, but she kind of just suppressed it because she
was hoping it was Brad Pitt.
Her daughter apparently for a year was saying, this can't be true, come on, think about it. But she just fell for it. But I just wonder, it's a very sad story. She's obviously now getting a lot of hate and ridicule as well.
Because she's been on French TV and she's had a huge amount of pushback from it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Danger to life is the warning from meteorologists as Britain braces for strong winds, rain and snow from Storm Eowyn, which is set to hit the country today with gusts of up to 90 miles per hour.
Yeah, there are even warnings of possible tornadoes, believe it or not, in the south of England today.
Well, the Met Office have also issued amber and yellow warnings for wind across the country, with people advised to watch out for flying debris that could be a risk to their lives and keep the dogs on a lead as well.
Keep the dogs on a lead. Let's talk to weather journalist Nathan Rao. Morning to you, Nathan. Here we go again.
Here we go again. Yes, it's the first storm of the year. The fifth storm of the season, Storm Eowyn, and yes, you are right, this is going to be a big one. Storm gusts of up to 90 mile per hour winds, Aidan was just talking about. I wouldn't be surprised, actually, if we didn't see higher than that. This is a very, very powerful storm that is going to sweep in tomorrow, and the whole of the country is under Met Office warnings for wind. The north of the country, the northwest and the northeast, just down to the southern point of Scotland, is under an amber warning. And it's when we move into the realm of amber warnings that things start to get serious. And yes, this looks like a very, very serious storm. There is also heavy rain with this storm and the risk of snow in the north. And Stephen, yes, as you mentioned, I have seen also tornadoes in the forecast. Now, this isn't as unusual as you may think. In fact, the UK has more tornadoes per square kilometre than anywhere else in the world. We just don't see them. So I wouldn't be surprised if we don't start seeing pictures of tornadoes coming out from the storm tomorrow. But other than that, across the whole of the country, tomorrow is a day to stay in because there are going to be some very, very strong winds and some very unpleasant weather on the way.
Oh, dear. And how long is it all set to last for, do you think, Nathan?
Yeah, oh dear, indeed, Ellie, yeah. Well, the storm warnings for Storm Eowyn end tomorrow night. That is the first storm. Then there is a brief lull on Saturday. But unfortunately, we seem to be stuck in another stormy period because on Sunday, there is another storm system on the way. Now, this hasn't been named yet. This would be Storm Floris, I think. Not been named yet, but another low pressure on the way on Sunday. And that seems to be the pattern into the start of the week. So wet and windy weather is going to be the pattern as we end January, I'm afraid.
Oh, heck.
Nathan, do you ever have any good news for us?
I never know. I mean, you were mentioning, Stephen, the weather is grim. It does seem that whenever you rub the grim lantern, I appear, and here I am with more grim warnings of weather on the way. No good news, no. Storm Eowyn, you know, as I said, it's the first storm of the season. We're talking just about the weather, and also it should be mentioned that Storm Eowyn is being fired up by the cold snap you may have seen in the news. Some very, very cold weather over America at the moment. Now, that cold weather is meeting warmer weather to the south, firing up the jet stream, and the jet stream is coming up down to the UK, and that's helping to fire up Storm Eowyn. So not good news, but yeah, stay indoors and certainly keep those dogs on a lead.
Yeah. OK, Nathan, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. So it is always the jet stream.
It's always the jet stream, which we've learned from Nathan.
We have learned. Nathan's very good.
He is very good, but I just wish he had some good news. Like it's going to be boiling hot next week.
Like a glorious summer. Do you think we'll get a summer this year?
Well, I hope so. Last year we had about 2 working days.
Yeah, it was 2 days more than we had the year before, though, wasn't it? That was quite a good year, all things considered.
Dear. But do you remember the first lockdown?
It was glorious.
Absolutely glorious.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and I don't think we've seen the sun since, really, have we?
No, we haven't,
anyway,
no.
Maybe this year. Who knows?
Right, let's tell you about the chance to win £50,000 because time is ticking away. You could have it totally tax-free in your bank account by the end of this month. So make sure you don't miss out. Here's how you enter.
There's just 2 weeks left to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize so far. £50,000 in tax-free cash. How would you react if you won?
Oh my God.
That's a big surprise.
Amazing. Just the best feeling ever.
I'm in shock. That is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
For another chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yes, good luck to you.
Luck.
Paul's been in touch and said, Stephen, are you auditioning for a boy band reunion? What? No, are you referring to the hair? I just zhuzhed it up a bit this morning.
It is very zhuzhy.
It is a bit zhuzhy.
How long do you spend on it?
Oh, no, not long, to be fair. But I did it last night, so it is how I sort of slept. But it's just zhuzhing it up. Look at my lovely grey sides.
I think it looks lovely, and I'm really enjoying your tan as well.
It's been very hot where I live. Right, Paul's going to be here with all the sport in just a minute.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Tyne and Wear, the A182 is closed in both directions between Hetton the Hole and Easington Lane after a fire at a derelict building. And on Tyne and Wear Metro, there are delays on the green and yellow lines because of a technical problem. On the M62 in West Yorkshire, the inside lane's closed westbound after an accident between junctions 25 and 24 from Brighouse to Ainley Top. Also in West Yorkshire, the A63 remains closed in both directions along Selby Road in Micklefield after an accident yesterday afternoon. On the M26 in Kent, it's taking around 10 minutes in delays approaching the M25 because of lane closures for roadworks. And in West Sussex, the A272 remains closed each way along Coneyhurst Road in Billingshurst after an accident yesterday afternoon. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
People living with obesity are people, and they deserve the right for treatment and care as much as anyone else. What we need to understand is that obesity is a chronic condition or a disease, as some people call it. It's not a choice. And this is the bit that people really struggle with, is that people think this is a lifestyle choice and people have done this to themselves. What we now know is the science and the evidence shows us that this isn't a choice. People have genetic predispositions for living with obesity. What we need to do is be a bit more compassionate and caring to people that live with obesity and support them to make healthier choices, not actually just discriminate and tell them that they're doing something wrong when, you know, if I had asthma, for instance, you wouldn't be saying the same thing to me there. But then it's exactly the same.
Usually, if you're going for an operation of some form or other, there'll be often there is a criteria. So my mother, she had a knee operation. They wanted to make sure her blood pressure was right and all these things. This is, I mean, to hear somebody say that obesity isn't a choice just because you've got genetic predisposition to it, it's just exactly why people seem to be legitimising being overweight. Ozempic has proved that people are overweight because they eat too much. Because Ozempic tells you to stop eating, it makes you think that you've eaten and makes you feel full, so you don't eat. You may be predisposed to anything, but you also have a large percentage of responsibility to make sure that doesn't happen. So absolutely, it is in the patient's best interests, because if you're overweight, it'll take you longer to heal. You're more likely to have complications, the same if you smoke, and also the outcomes are usually better. So for a smoker, if you quit, say 4 weeks before surgery, your 25%, your risk is lower of respiratory complications. So this is literally, of course it's discriminatory, because you have to decide, you have to prioritise the people that are likely to survive the operations.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. It's sports
When you're ready,
time.
when you're ready.
We're just so polite to each other. Paul Coit is here with us. Morning.
Oh, it's like the Chuckle Brothers to me, to you, to you.
Or Timothy Chalamet. You get mistaken for occasionally.
Yeah, it drives me crazy.
And Tom Cruise, you were saying?
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to say?
No, that's about all.
George Clooney.
It is the height. You know what, I was thinking that, and I thought, no, I've got to... Yeah. It's true. He's actually... How tall? He's about, what, 5'1"?
He's like 5'6" or something.
Got to be careful, though, with Tom Cruise, because he'll sue.
Yeah. I've met him.
You have met him?
I have met him.
Is he nice?
On a red carpet. Well, I didn't get... He was doing a red carpet. I say met him. I didn't actually have a conversation with him, but I was stood next to him.
Right. And how did you look at, firstly, how much taller were you than him, and also did you look at his shoes? Was there a bit of that going on?
I didn't look at his shoes.
You didn't? He hasn't got lifts then?
But it was at the Jack Reacher premiere when that came out.
Right, OK.
I love how you say you've met him. It's like when we stood next to Prince William. You're saying, I met Prince William that time.
Yeah, but this
we
is...
just stood behind him.
But this is showbiz world, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, frankly, Prince William and I are best mates.
Yeah,
as a result of that.
I think we all could be, actually. He seemed very normal.
Yeah.
I'd get on with William.
He's tall, though, isn't he?
He is
very tall. Very tall man. Yeah.
I'd say... I'm going to say
6'2".
I'd say 6'1", 6'2".
6'1", 6'2"?
Yeah, tall guy.
Right, same as me then. Wow, incredible.
You're 5'1", Paul. Anyway, should we talk about Man City?
Yes. Oh, dear. So Manchester City looked like things were getting better for Manchester City. You know, they're moving up the Premier League table. Champions League's a bit of a disaster because the way it works, and I tried to explain it yesterday, Eowyn was having none of it. I know you'll listen to me. From 1 to 8, if you're in the Champions League, from 1 to 8, then you go forward into the round of 16. From 9 to 24, if you come, there's only one game left, then that goes into a playoff. Anything below 24, you are out. And Manchester City are now down in that elbow-out area because they were 2-0 up in Paris against Paris Saint-Germain. There's Jack Grealish, who scored a goal. Then another one came, and it's like, well, this is against the run of play, but maybe Man City have turned a corner. But then Paris Saint-Germain got angry. And you won't like them when they're angry. There was the onslaught, City collapse, 9th time this season that they've been ahead and not won the game. They conceded 4 times. So now they're at the point where they have to beat Club Brugge next week. If they don't beat them, then... I mean, who would have thought that they are going to be out of the Champions League? And Pep Guardiola, obviously, not too happy. This is what he said yesterday.
We have the last chance at home against Bruges. We will do everything there, and if it's not, it's because we don't deserve it. So we have away tough games, but of course the game against Inter, especially in Feyenoord, they put it in that position, but it's not about just that. We can qualify, but we have to, of course, after that, you have to recover players and do it better. So It's simple as that. So they would better have to accept it, and sport is like that.
I would go as far to say, and I don't use this phrase ever, they're looking a bit like a busted flush.
Oh.
Yes. Ouch. And if I find out what that word means, then I will use it again. They look slow, they look tired, they look like a team that's seen their better days. So something needs to go on there. And anyway, Celtic beat Young Boys.
Well, you called that, didn't you?
Of Bern, yes. But only just, though. I mean, that was tough for them. They missed a penalty, 3 goals disallowed, but they came through, so they are definitely in the playoffs, which is good. And Arsenal dealt with Dinamo Zagreb very easily, 3-0, and so they're pushing for that place in the automatic promotion places. So very good for them.
Yeah. What's going on at the Australian Open?
Oh, yeah. Have you heard about this? Iga Swiatek. So Iga Swiatek, one of the favourites, 5-time Grand Slam winner. She's the one that thrashed Emma Raducanu. Yeah, that's right. So it's a double bounce furore. Now, as you know, when you play tennis, the ball only can bounce once. And it happened with Jack Draper recently as well, where he got into a lot of trouble because it looked like a double bounce. He said, look, the ball came down, I tried to flick it up, I didn't know that it bounced twice. Iga Swiatek, I'm sure, knew what was going on. Now, this is at the Australian Open. She's playing Emma Navarro. There's an umpiring error, so that was missed, but also there's a little rule which should be changed as well. So let's have a look at this and say, no, it's too late. So the rule has to change there because it's completely unfair. But also, Swiatek, you've got someone like her who is a great champion, and the chances are she would win the game. What do you do? Because if it was me, being so honest, I'd say, well, look, it bounced twice, and you'd admit it. But she just carried on. But then again, that's what winners, I suppose, are all about. Win at all costs.
You're a winner.
I suppose so. All right, Paul, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you later on.
Thank you.
Now, if you're in some search of some winter sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
If you're tempted to leave the stormy weather in the UK behind and search for some winter sun, actually, there will be some across the Mediterranean, certainly some sunny spells for the Canaries, just 1 or 2 showers around. Windier for Portugal, that's all connected to Friday's storm in the UK, a few showers for Spain, but a lot of fine weather across Italy and Greece aside from the odd shower. Then it does turn much more unsettled across Spain, Portugal and into parts of France during the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Yeah. Oh, so sorry.
Still
hello.
to come.
I was chatting to Paul.
Oh, nice chat. Still to come, Alex Armstrong and Susan Holder going through what's making the news this morning.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
An absolute monster. It took Chloe and Sean Ing 90 minutes to reel in this gigantic 8-foot-long monster fish from Chigborough Fisheries in Essex. And upon weighing this enormous marine beast, it was found to have been 7 pounds heavier than the existing British record, a 143-pound catfish caught also in Essex. But as I understand it, you actually went for a Chinese meal when fate struck. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. So I was fishing an area of Chigborough where you have to fish at a fair distance. So I cast my rods out and then we ordered a Chinese. And yeah, so I got the bite at about 10 to 8 at night. And then about 20 minutes into it, my phone started ringing, the Chinese guys at the gate with my delivery. So I had to send a couple of guys off to go and get it. And then, yeah, the fight, obviously, you can't just stop the fight to go and get your Chinese. So, yeah, the fight went on, for about an hour and a half in total. There's no net in the world that's big enough for this fish. So we had to send out. First of all, I sent out a mate, Alex. He went out there to go and basically use what we call a sling. So that's a safe apparatus that we use to take the fish out of the water. He then went and he turned around and he was like, "We're going to need another sling." So then we sent out another friend with a sling, and these slings are 4 foot long each. So then we had the catfish wrapped up in 2 slings, and it was still slightly longer than that. And then we got to a point where we was like, now we've got to try and get it out of the water to photo, to weigh it, because obviously we knew then that it was possibly going to be a UK record.
GB News.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
6:43, let's have a look at some of the front pages. And the Telegraph has a report by Thames Water showing 1 in 12 people living in London are apparently illegal immigrants.
The Times focuses on the mystery Russian spy ship located in British waters yesterday.
The Sun pays tribute to Leo Ross, a 12-year-old boy stabbed to death on his way home from school.
Prince Harry dominates the I newspaper after settling his privacy case with The Sun.
Similar story for The Guardian. They call the Duke's win monumental and historic.
Well, joining us to go through the papers this morning is political commentator Alex Armstrong and author and journalist Susan Holder, who is a vision in tartan this morning. And I've just Googled, it's Burns Night on Saturday.
Well, there you go.
I knew there was something Scottish about you.
I just had an urge for tartan when I woke up. That must be what it was.
Well, there you go.
Very timely. Alex, let's have a look at this story, shall we? Fascinating, isn't it?
Yes.
And it's this Russian spy ship that was near Britain yesterday.
Well, it's getting a little bit heated, isn't it? And, you know, there's a sense of feeling that this war between Ukraine and Russia may come to an end. Trump's signalling all these, you know, I'm going to meet with Putin. I mean, he did originally pledge that he'd end the war in 24 hours. Obviously, that's passed now.
He didn't say which 24 hours.
Well, he actually said he 24 hours within office, so technically he's passed his original deadline. But I think this is quite telling. We've obviously had quite a lot of interactions with the Russians through jets and obviously through our ships before as well. But, you know, the British government's come out very, very strong here. They've said, John Healey said, no, I wanted to get the quote correct, he said, I wanted President Putin to hear this message. We see you, we know what you're doing, and we will not shy away from robust action to protect this country. Now, that comes as the story saying that these subs are looking at underwater sea cables, which could be critical to our national security, things like the internet, for example, energy. But of course, you know, they think that it reminisces of that pipeline that was mysteriously destroyed, just cutting off the gas between Europe and Russia. So, you know, I think there's lots of questions. Lots of questions today about whether we're spending enough on national defence, whether Keir Starmer's going to have to reach Trump's future pledge. I think he wants 5%, and we're at 2.3.
Yeah. I think what's quite interesting was the way that we did engage, though, was so British. We sent a message that said good morning to the Russian subs, so they knew that we saw them, which I thought was an excellent way of doing it, actually. And they kind of disappeared then because they knew they'd been seen. But how British were we? Good morning.
Quite right. I think that's very good. That's very good. It's good morning. Don't move. We're going to torpedo you. I mean, it's, you know, it's polite but firm.
I have said, though, for a long time that I don't know why we're worried about anything else, but if they cut off the internet, what are we going to do? Because we don't have any backup positions in any system. For anything we ever do, we couldn't buy something in a shop. We couldn't, you know, go anywhere. We couldn't travel. We couldn't get on a train. Or if you try and deal with anybody who's having a computer meltdown in any industry or any workplace, they can't help you. So that would absolutely just destabilise the entire country.
Yes, I don't quite. I don't understand the internet and where it is coming from? in that sense,
Stephen,
who has
you're not that old.
Who has the
It's
internet? But if it's on, if it's all down to cables, who has the internet?
Well, it's
who owns it?
Well, it's owned.
That question, yeah.
Well,
no, I
it's
know what you
owned
mean.
a little bit by private companies. So Google, for example, own a lot of the sea cables, but we also have our own. So there you go.
But we used to do an awful lot of things without it, and we ought to have backup positions in every single industry, and we just don't.
Yeah, that's true. Susan, can we have a look at Harry?
Yes.
And indeed Tom Watson,
Yes.
who've won this massive payout from The Sun after unlawful intrusion into their private lives.
Yes, so the court case was due to start yesterday, and quite surprisingly, there is no court case because there's been a settlement, rumoured to be 10 million, but it could be up to 20 million to Harry.
I was going to say, because 10 million was just the court and legal costs.
Yeah, we don't actually know. It's not been fully disclosed, but what's interesting, I think, is... it's a strange one with Harry, isn't it? Because as much as I would have criticised him on many things, it just goes to show that just because you're paranoid, it doesn't mean people aren't out to get you. And he has had a case here where it's not the journalists of The Sun who've been found at fault, it's private investigators, obviously acting on behalf of The Sun. As somebody who was a journalist in the 1980s and worked for quite a lot of the big papers as an agency reporter, it was a different time. I predate mobile phones as a journalist. That's how old I am.
Yeah, me too.
So there was no phone hacking or anything like that. I definitely worked for very unscrupulous editors who would ask you to do things that you thought, like when there was the Lockerbie disaster or something, they would send you to the houses. And you did have to get information, but you would... And I would explain why I was there. And if I was kind of knocked back by anybody, I wouldn't return. My editor was like, go back. And I'd just say, yeah, I did, and they won't spit. I just would say I had done that, because why would you just keep bothering somebody who was distressed? But in this case, as a journalist, I'm horrified by what has gone on. I think it's absolutely disgraceful. But the interesting thing is, why has Harry settled? Why did he not have his day in court that he said it was all about? He wanted it all played out. He wanted all the detail out there. Is it money? Does he need the money?
It will have been the money. I know it's so you're going down the conspiracy. What didn't he want to come out in court? But I have to say, it's going to be the money. The settlement that has been made must have been considerably more than they ever hoped to get in a court case.
But he also could have been liable for costs, which would have ruined him, which he couldn't afford. Is it also something to do with the fact that without playing out all the dirty linen in public, it helps him with his family relationships as well? All those things are quite interesting.
Well, he was previously asked whether he would settle, and he said he wouldn't, and he wanted to take it to trial because it was about accountability rather than
Yes,
money.
that's what he said.
So it's interesting that there's been this U-turn, because it had been a crusade of his, hadn't it?
Yeah.
And he saw it not only for himself, but also for his late mother, who...
And will it bring... And that obviously is driving an awful lot of this, and understandably so. Will it bring him any solace and peace? Who knows? Who knows?
Might help with that security bill, though. Over in Montecito. Alex, this shocking story in the Daily Telegraph today that we've been talking about. 1 in 12 people in London is an illegal migrant.
Yeah, I don't know how many people will be surprised to hear it, actually. We're talking about 500,000, we're almost 600,000 illegal immigrants. And actually, the report says that this could be a massive underestimation.
Yeah.
Which I, again, wouldn't be surprised about, considering we can't actually track these people. This is an estimated... concept of the number, at least. And, the report saying, this is putting pressure on public services, hospitals, schools, all these other things. But the reality is, me and Susan were talking about this, actually, it's probably affecting things like the NHS, but perhaps not schools, because
how would
obviously, how would they have access?
Services? I was saying to Alex, I don't understand how it puts pressure on that in a way, because if I turned up and tried to get an appointment or do something and I didn't have my documentation, surely they wouldn't allow it. And usually it's quite a miserable existence living below the radar like that, isn't it?
What it certainly will do, and we've seen these sky-high rents, the cost of living going up, people struggling to afford their rents, is that it will put pressure on housing, because you're having to just shove people in lots of different houses. But it's miserable, and I think the real key here is this sort of community cohesion, this constant thing we're talking about with culture. Are people coming to the UK with good intentions? It's asking people a lot of those questions. And the fact that Sam Ashworth-Hayes, who's done a great job on this piece, by the way, I encourage everyone to read it, has had to get this information out of government rather than the government telling us, by the way, we've got a bit of a crisis here. At least 600,000 people are here we don't know about. This is the sort of stuff we want government transparency over. We don't want them to be hiding it behind.
The government doesn't know the figures.
It doesn't, and it's scared to talk about them quite clearly. That's why journalists like Sam are having to go out there and do the extra legwork on behalf of the public. It feels like there's this sort of element of secrecy that the government don't want to say, sorry, it is pretty bad, but we don't want to tell you how bad it is because we're all going to be in uproar about it.
Well, we might want something done about it, and then where would they be?
Yeah.
Because they don't know what to do about it because they can't find them in the first place.
Well, they're fuelling this black market economy. They're fueling thefts in London. We've seen, one rape reported every hour in London since Sadiq Khan became mayor. That's the same time that the migration crisis has really picked up.
What we can't... and what you've got to be careful with that is the rhetoric, though, because what you can't do is then say, well, all of these rapes, all of these crimes are being done by illegal migrants.
No, I'm not suggesting that's the case. But I think what if we don't address it, those sorts of speculative pieces will start to question that. And I think that's the failure of government here. It's just not communicating with the public and saying, here's what we do know, rather than what we don't know.
It is clear that something needs to be done. In the Telegraph, Susan, Tesco, and thank heavens we're seeing supermarkets get behind this now.
Yeah. All of the supermarkets are, actually.
Tesco is now saying food security is at risk because of this farm tax.
Yes, they are. And what we need to understand is that British farms don't just kind of, have a little farm shop and sell nice things. They provide an awful lot of our food, cereals, meat, dairy, eggs. The vast proportion of that we eat comes from our British farms. And Tesco are the latest supermarket to kind of put their head up on this and say it's going to risk our food security if we carry on with this policy that they're trying to bring in over the inheritance tax. They're not the only ones. Aldi, Lidl, Asda, Morrisons and Sainsbury's have all said similar things. And the Office for Budget Responsibility have said, are also kind of saying it's not a good idea.
Yeah, well, I'm glad they're getting behind it because that'll make a difference.
Yeah, and more pressure on the Chancellor. Can't really ignore the big supermarkets, can you? Thank you, you two. Let's have a look at the weather.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A big change in the weather on the way. A spell of wind and rain today. That clears later. Then some even wetter and windier weather expected throughout Friday and Saturday with Storm Eowyn moving in. Now, this system at the start of today isn't Storm Eowyn, but it is going to bring a spell of heavy rain across the country for a few hours, along with some very gusty winds, 50, 60 mile-per-hour wind gusts for southern and western England, as well as Wales. But it does move through. Brighter skies follow for Northern Ireland, Wales and the south by the end of the day, whilst the wet weather remains across Scotland and eastern England. Eventually, though, that tends to push northeastwards with clearing skies across the southern half of the UK. We're going to see temperatures fall away, lighter winds as well. So a fine end to Thursday, but quite a number of showers into North Wales, Northern England and Northern Ireland. And the most unsettled weather is expected at 6 p.m. across Scotland, with showers falling as sleet and snow over the hills. It's going to be blustery as well as the day comes to a close across Scotland. But overnight, those winds tend to ease, and with clear spells, temperatures fall away. A touch of frost likely for eastern and northeastern parts of the country, but that's only ahead of a very fierce low that's moving in overnight. This is Storm Eowyn, likely to bring widespread disruption by the start of Friday. Heavy rain, especially in the southwest, a spell of hail snow for northern England and Scotland. But the biggest cause for concern are the winds widely across the UK, away from the southeast, 60 or even 70 mile-per-hour wind gusts. But for Irish Sea coasts, Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, through northern England and North Wales, the risk during the first half of Friday of 80 or 90 mile-per-hour wind gusts. That could cause serious disruption and damage in places.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
the latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Tyne and Wear, the A182 is closed in both directions between Hetton Hole and Easington Lane after a fire at a derelict building. In West Yorkshire, the A63 is closed each way along Selby Road in Micklefield after an accident yesterday afternoon. On the M62 in West Yorkshire, the inside lane's closed westbound after an accident between junctions 25 and 24 from Brighouse to Ainley Top. In East Yorkshire, the A63 is closed eastbound along Roger Millwood Way in Hull after overnight roadworks overran. On the M25 in Hertfordshire, looks like there's a problem anti-clockwise at junction 23 for the A1 with queues for around a mile towards there. On the M26 in Kent, it's taking nearly half an hour in queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks. And in West Sussex, the A272 is closed along Coneyhurst Road in Billingshurst after an accident yesterday.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
There's just 2 weeks left to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize so far. £50,000 in tax-free cash. How would you react if you won?
Oh my God.
That's a big surprise.
Amazing. Just the best feeling ever.
I'm in shock. That is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is Britain's newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
Oh, no, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It's a day of reckoning for the Southport killer.
Axel Rudakubana will be sentenced for the murder of 3 little girls, Alice De Silva Aguirre, BB King and Elsie Stanton.
As a public inquiry begins to get to the root of how so many red flags were missed.
A measure of justice has been done, but for the victims, the injured and the affected, we must see a fundamental change in how Britain protects its citizens and its children.
Shock new statistics. An estimated 1 million people are living illegally in the UK, with up to 1 in 12 London residents thought to be illegal migrants.
There's a tornado warning in force for parts of England. Find out how you'll be affected.
Ahead of Storm Eowyn, an unsettled day today before some very lively weather arrives during tomorrow. I'll have the very latest on the storm and what you can expect in the weather.
NIMBYs look away now. The government overhauls planning rules in a bid to get Britain building. We'll be talking to the Minister for Housing about that just after 9 a.m.
Later in the programme, we meet one inspiring lady who's gained the admiration of the Queen. And it's all thanks to bees.
And in the sport, Champions League, Manchester City throw away a lead again to lose 4-2 in Paris. Celtic and Arsenal win. There's another Battle of Britain in the Europa League tonight. And 5 months after the Olympics finished, the medals have gone all rusty.
It's just gone 7 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast. Now, do you believe in haunted houses? I'm not sure I do.
I think I do more than I'd like to admit.
Really?
Yeah.
Because Adele does. She rented a home in 2012 for 6 months. It's in West Sussex. It's worth about £6 million, 10 bedrooms, lovely big house.
Gorgeous.
Lived in it for 6 months, and she said it was haunted. It used to be an old convent.
Oh.
And she said the place gave her the creeps. And she spoke about it in loads of television interviews at the time. The owner of that house has not been able to sell it since because Adele claims it's haunted.
Really?
Cannot sell this mansion in West Sussex. Apparently, there was another tenant that moved in after Adele. He moved out after a few months, saying the same thing.
What did they say what they saw? Did they just felt creepy, or they saw nuns floating across the floor or something,
she
or
said
what?
It was very cliche. It was very scary. She thinks it was because it was a convent in the past. And the place just gave her the creeps, she says. Yeah.
That shouldn't put anyone off buying it if they like the look of it. It's gorgeous.
Ah, but it does, apparently. Haunted house owners in this country have to lower the price of their homes by up to 17%, more than £50,000 on average, in order to actually get them sold. Apparently this is happening up and down the country.
So more people would want to buy them to see
You could get yourself a bargain.
No. If you saw a ghost then, what would you do?
I wouldn't be frightened, I don't think.
I would.
I'd be terrified.
I'd cry.
Yes.
No.
I'd leave. I'd pack my bags. Done.
But Ellie, you said you don't believe
I
it.
know, but if I saw a ghost, I'd believe very quickly, wouldn't I?
But what about if you were at Adele's house and they said, well, come over and stay, which you don't believe it, you'd be quite happy to stay there? I bet you would.
Yeah, I'd be happy to stay.
Would you? You'd do
But
it?
then if I saw a ghost, I'd leave pretty sharpish, I think.
Right.
So you'd nab yourself a bargain. You'd buy a haunted mansion.
I'm not scared of ghosts.
Right.
Why be scared? They're only
what are they?
Who've passed over.
I know.
Probably.
But it depends what their intentions are, you know?
Yeah,
Could be bad people that passed over.
Well, maybe. I don't know. It doesn't scare me in that way.
Well, see, this is the... so if there's a ghost there and you know it's a ghost and maybe, it's all spooky and what have you, it's not the fear that they're going to hurt you. That doesn't worry me. I don't think, I'm going to get hurt. I don't even know why I would be scared, but I go, I'd turn and run. I don't know. I don't know why I would.
I think it's the unknown, isn't it? Not knowing what they want
Fear of
with
the
you
unknown.
or who they are.
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
I don't know. But apparently there were 3 people that rented it after Adele and they all left very quickly as well.
Yeah.
So I think there's probably something in it.
Might be. I don't know. I've never been scared of stuff like that.
OK. You're braver than me, then.
Well, maybe you should buy it then. It looks very nice.
Just look nice. I haven't got £6 million, unfortunately.
Oh, you have.
Come on. Do. Lockhouse Mansion, it's called, in West Sussex. And now the owner wants to split it up into lots of flats. He's hoping to sell it that way.
Right, more squared
It's a
people.
shame. I hate it when they do that.
Yeah, it's a shame.
No, it's a huge house as well. Anyway, let us know what you think. Do you believe in haunted houses?
I bet a few
Do
of
you
you
live in one?
I bet a few of you have seen some ghosts.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
gbnews.com/you'll say.
Yeah. Could I just ask you what you think of are you worried about the weather coming up at the moment?
Yeah. Tornado, hurricane or typhoon. So it's the same thing, but just for a different part of the world, right?
Is it?
I believe that to be the case.
We should have asked Nathan Rowell.
So we don't have hurricanes here because hurricanes in Hampshire hardly ever happen. But tornado is here. Hurricane is America. Typhoon, I believe to be the case, is in the Far East.
Oh, I thought
but it's the same thing, right?
I thought typhoons
are much
included
bigger.
water as well.
Right, OK.
Or is it tropical?
I don't know.
Have Dudley on a lead today. That's what I'm
we'll
gonna
have
say
him
to
on a
you.
lead today.
The weather is going to be pretty bad. And they say these typhoons, tornadoes.
Hurricanes.
Down south somewhere. Anyway, we'll tell you more about that
a
little bit later on. It's all a bit depressing. Anyway, let's move on to the news today. It's going to be a real day of reckoning, thankfully, for child killer Axel Rudakubana. He's going to be sentenced later on today.
Well, Alistair Silver-Aguirre, B.B. King and Elsie Dot Stankham were murdered in the vicious knife attack at a Taylor Swift-themed dance class in July of last year.
Well, on Monday, 18-year-old Rudakubana pled guilty to the murders, as well as to producing a biological toxin and being in possession of a PDF file called the Al-Qaeda Training Manual.
Well, GB News Home Security editor Mark White looks at how the killer was left unchecked to carry out his terrible crimes and how the nationwide riots that followed caused a political crisis.
In the aftermath of the horrific events in Southport, anger and disorder struck many communities. amid a perception authorities were not disclosing key facts about teenage killer Axel Rudakubana, a young man with a violent and deeply disturbing mindset that saw him refer to the Prevent Counter-Extremism programme 3 times, as well as multiple other agencies. We now know, as confirmed by the Prime Minister this week, that information was withheld. Sir Keir Starmer said it was done to ensure any forthcoming trial would not be prejudiced.
The importance of the rule about not disclosing this information is to ensure that the trial can take place and that where an individual is guilty, they're held to account.
But with little official information in the aftermath of the stabbings, the void was filled with online speculation and rumour, which only compounded the sense of outrage and anger. Axel Rudakubana was first referred to the Prevent programme back in 2019, when he was just 13 years of age, after he took a knife to his former school in Formby. It was one of 10 occasions he admitted carrying a knife at school. After being excluded, he returned and assaulted pupils with a hockey stick. He was open in discussing his desire to carry out a school massacre. Yet it seems because there was no apparent evidence that his views were aligned to any particular terrorist group or ideology, counter-extremism practitioners decided not to intervene. Police, the courts, youth justice, social services and other safeguarding agencies also failed to respond in any meaningful way as Rudakubana's downward spiral towards serious violence intensified. And other questions still remain unanswered. A week before the Southport attacks, the teenager's father pleaded with a local taxi driver not to drive him to his former high school, where it's thought he was planning to carry out an attack there. Despite the deadly toxin ricin and Al-Qaeda jihadist documents being discovered at his home just days after the attack, it took a further 3 months before a terror charge and a biological weapons charge were added to the indictment and the public informed. In the months ahead, a public inquiry may provide some answers. Today, the focus is on the length of time in prison the trial judge will decide is the most appropriate response to the most evil and horrific of crimes. Mark White, GB News, Merseyside.
Well, we're joined now by former London police officer and director of Law and Order Foundation, Norman Brennan. Good to see you this morning, Norman. And it's just harrowing, isn't it? Listening to it all laid out like that, the number of red flags that were missed, the number of opportunities to stop this violent man and that horrific attack that happened last July.
Absolutely, Ellie. Good morning to you both. You're right. How often have we heard, and I've been in policing and law and order for 46 years, lessons must be learned. I think one of the biggest problems in Britain at the moment is that people are too frightened to intervene. Sometimes because of the ethnicity of the actual person that they are concerned about. They think that if they put that particular person forward, they'll be accused of some sort of racism. Well, if that's the case, it means that individuals, some as this young man, are potentially walking time bombs. And we can't have walking time bombs going around. We've got 160,000 children and young adults last year that were carrying knives. Each and every single one potentially could lose their life or take somebody else's. Nobody ever knows when or if you're going to get involved in an altercation. But in this particular young man's case, how is it that a 17-year-old child, and this goes back to when he was 13, had carried a knife 10 times? No one intervened. No one highlighted it.
Well, it was highlighted by the school. I mean, his name was raised, wasn't it? I mean, that seems to be the issue, that his name was raised, but the appropriate authorities decided themselves not to take action.
Absolutely. I think the point I'm getting at, Steve, here is that how can somebody aged 13 have so much anger so much hatred, and these young children that are self-radicalising. Now, when the public say we're concerned about terrorism, well, of course we're all concerned about terrorism, but these are children. Many years ago, most of us thought that terrorists were adults, that were gangs of adults that were potentially out there to kill and maim people. But we've got children now sitting in their bedrooms, self-radicalising. Now, this individual is one of the most dangerous people in Britain, and it's not a hardened criminal, it's a child. What does that say about society? And he's not alone. I just gave you an example there of 160,000 children that are carrying knives on the streets every day of the week. Every one of those a potential killer. I report on homicide and gun and knife crime on a daily basis. I've never reported so many children getting involved in crime. My breaking news this morning, 5 children have been arrested in relation to conspiracy to murder a girl that was left on a roadside, horrifically injured. If you want me to give my personal view on knife crime in Britain, we're on life support. Now, I've been dealing with knife crime as a police officer for 31 years. I nearly died myself when I was stabbed by an armed burglar. I've helped pick up the devastation of others. We don't take it seriously. If you carry a gun in a public place, it's a mandatory sentence of a minimum of 5 years. You're 3 times more likely to be stabbed to death than shot to death. Yet often when you carry a knife, you get a punishment no more serious than a parking ticket. Something has seriously gone wrong. And when Yvette Cooper says that we need to crack down on Amazon, no, well, yes, we need to crack down on everyone. She's actually distorted the true facts. Out of Britain, there's 28.4 million houses in Britain. That means 150 to 200 million knives on the streets of Britain or in houses. And most people are stabbed or murdered by a house knife, not by a zombie knife.
Well, as you say, that the threat of terrorism is changing. Keir Starmer said that this week, didn't he? He said that it's now we're seeing perpetrators that are loners, that are misfits. And as you say, they're being radicalised in their bedrooms. But with this changing threat that we're hearing so much about, you look at Prevent, which is meant to prevent these sorts of terror attacks. Well, it's not fit for purpose, surely, because Axel Rudakubana was referred 3 times and deemed no threat. And we've heard it before, haven't we, with London Bridge attack? We've heard it with the Reading attack as well. All of these perpetrators are known to prevent, and that the attack is not prevented.
You're absolutely right. I mean, Prevent is a voluntary thing. It's in relation to schools, colleges, and even parents. Now, if you know someone or believe someone is self-radicalising or showing very worrying traits along that line, it's your duty as a public servant, and in these particular cases, officials that oversee schools and colleges, to highlight it. I think we're living in a society where everybody else says that's somebody else's problem, it's not mine. Well, the people that ignored this one or didn't deal with it appropriately, that's somebody else's problem, resulted in 3 young girls being stabbed to death and 10 others almost losing their lives. If this is not a wake-up call, I don't know what it is. Maggie Oliver has just highlighted, and rightly so, an ex-colleague of mine, about the grooming gangs. I believe that knife crime in Britain and radicalisation and those as age as young as 13 or 14 pose some of the most serious risks that 20 or 30 years ago we only thought that came from grown adults.
That's a fair point. Norman, good to see you this morning. Thanks very much indeed. I mean, clearly. So there's knife amnesties and things that happen every few years and what have you, but they're not getting to the root of the problem with all of this. And then every day, almost, it seems, or certainly every week, we're getting these horrific stories, like Leo Ross, the 12-year-old, on a lot of front of the papers, stabbed to death on his way home from school. A 12-year-old. A 14-year-old has been arrested in that. I mean, this is where it becomes really concerning. But what can be done and what needs to be done?
Yeah, it's just tragic, isn't it? Absolutely awful. Let us know what you think on that one. gbnews.com/your say.
Now, The Telegraph has revealed there are more than 1 million illegal migrants in the UK, 60% of them in the capital.
Well, the study was actually commissioned by Thames Water, and it found that London is home to an estimated 585,000 illegal migrants.
Concerns over border control failures and pressure on public services are growing, but official figures from the Home Office are not made public.
Well, we're joined now by former advisor to Boris Johnson, Oscar Redrup. And Oscar, I don't know what's more shocking, the numbers or the fact that this hasn't come from the Home Office, this has come from Thames Water.
Yeah. Well, it's to your point. It's absolutely both. I mean, of course, the numbers are stark. And when we talk about, and you guys do it very well on this show, you talk about the NHS, the pressures that we have there, infrastructure, and when there is an unaccounted for extra 1 million people in this country that we did not know about, that crucially our Home Office didn't know about, that crucially our Home Office didn't come forward and report on and tell the British public that there are 1 million people here illegally. It basically was done, we only know this through kind of accident almost. Thames Water commissioned a kind of a secretive study, if you like, to find out about, usage and double usage of, water supplies across the country, etc., etc. And the Telegraph did some really sharp journalism, put in a Freedom of Information request to the Home Office, and that is the only reason we know about this. And so people might not know this, but FOI requests, Freedom of Information requests, anyone can do one. You don't have to, have a posh job, or you don't have to work for a newspaper or anything like that. You can be a member of the public, and if you want to know something, if you feel like actually there's some crucial information that affects my life that I think the government might have an answer to, and they're not forthcoming with it, you can put one in, and they will eventually have to get back to you. So this isn't, I mean, thank God the Telegraph did this, but to all your viewers out there, if you feel like your MP's giving you a bit of a, the long arm or whatever, and they're not really helping you out, then, you can kind of take matters into your own hands on this stuff.
Well, 1 million, though, across the country, I mean, it's a big figure at a time when we are struggling anyway, and particularly when you look at housing and all the rest of it, right? I mean, as you said, it applies to every aspect of society. If this doesn't put pressure on the government, whatever government is in, to do something about it, nothing will.
Absolutely right. I mean, it feels like, with the sentencing today, there's so many problems and so many huge issues that the government have got to get their heads around. But this is, so close to the top. And, the Conservatives, obviously, not the best record, as we all know, over the last 14 years on this stuff. They need to get their house in order. And, if you're Farage and Reform, you see figures like that. You see a Home Office that have basically, been forced to, by coincidence almost, reveal this data. And you think, there it is. Like, that is the nub of it in terms of when we move forward to the next election. And the problems that, as I'm sure Reform and Farage would say, that the establishment are just not willing to deal with, and not even willing to come to be open and honest about in terms of statistics.
Colossal implications for the NHS, for housing, for our schools, and for community cohesion as well.
Yeah, immigration is a really emotive, heated topic. Of course it is. But actually, when you see numbers like this, it just you kind of cut through all the politics of it, left, right, centre, whatever. It's just a security issue. If you have 1 million people in a country that you don't know anything about, that aren't here legally, it just comes down to that. Yeah. And most fair-minded, reasonable people across this country will see that and think, what is going on?
Here's just a quick thought, because certainly, I mean, Farage has sort of said similar lines to Trump in a way, saying we're going to stop it.
Yeah.
We are going to stop it, and people who are here illegally will be deported and all that sort of thing, which a lot of people buy into. Can we actually do that?
I mean, I think
legally.
I think there are a lot of ECHR kind of hoops to correct and break down and jump through. But I do think, and I'm not attaching any of my personal politics necessarily to this, but I think deportation will enter into our politics more and more as an issue and a demand, particularly when we look across at America. And in fairness, particularly when we see crazy numbers like this from this Telegraph report this morning.
OK. Oscar, thank you very much indeed. Because it's one of those things, as you said, if it enters our lexicon a bit more, I mean, you sort of would expect people to be deported.
Well,
but it just doesn't seem to happen. You've got to ask, why isn't it happening? Is there something that's actually blocking it? So is it just the ECHR?
ECHR, yeah. But I think there'll be a lot of eyes across Europe looking over at what Donald Trump is doing, seeing how successful he'll be in his mission.
Yeah.
But something needs to be done, doesn't it? I mean, those numbers are stark, shocking, and it has huge implications across the country.
Including on the economy, of course. It all ties into the economy. It's our poll of the day today. We're asking, as the economy struggles, should Rachel Reeves prioritise reducing debt or economic growth?
Well, we're bringing the live results throughout the day, so make sure you stay tuned. As always, the final result will be announced later in Martin Daubney's show. If you want to get involved, just scan the QR code on your screen now, or you can go to gbnews.com/poll.
7:22, these are the other stories heading into the newsroom this morning, and a police hunt is underway in Plymouth after a person was seriously assaulted. Police were called to the Westco area at about 9 o'clock last night. There's still a large police presence there as officers search for a male suspect.
As we we're just saying, tributes are pouring in for a 12-year-old boy who was stabbed to death in Birmingham. Leo Ross has been described as funny and sweet by his teacher and was adored by his friends. A 14-year-old boy has been arrested on suspicion of murder.
A Russian spy ship has been warded off British waters by a Royal Navy submarine. The Defence Secretary confirmed the presence of the vessel yesterday before saying that Russia remains the most pressing and immediate threat to Britain.
An effort to free 5 elderly elephants from Colorado Zoo in the United States has failed. The state's highest court has ruled that they don't have a right to request their freedom because they're not human. Animal advocate group Non-Human Rights Project brought the case in a bid to move the herd to a sanctuary.
Right, with Storm Eowyn in the offing, let's get a look at the weather with Aidan.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A big change in the weather on the way. A spell of wind and rain today. That clears later. Then some even wetter and windier weather expected throughout Friday and Saturday, with Storm Eowyn moving in. Now, this system at the start of today isn't Storm Eowyn, but it is good to bring a spell of heavy rain across the country for a few hours, along with some very gusty winds, 50, 60 mile-per-hour wind gusts for southern and western England, as well as Wales. But it does move through. Brighter skies follow for Northern Ireland, Wales and the south by the end of the day, whilst the wet weather remains across Scotland and eastern England. Eventually, though, that tends to push northeastwards with clearing skies across the southern half of the UK. We're going to see temperatures fall away, lighter winds as well. So a fine end to Thursday, but quite a number of showers into North Wales, Northern England and Northern Ireland. And the most unsettled weather is expected at 6 p.m. across Scotland, with showers falling as sleet and snow over the hills. It's going to be blustery as well as the day comes to a close across Scotland. But overnight, those winds tend to ease, and with clear spells, temperatures fall away. A touch of frost likely for eastern and northeastern parts of the country, but that's only ahead of a very fierce low that's moving in overnight. This is Storm Eowyn, likely to bring widespread disruption by the start of Friday. Heavy rain, especially in the southwest, a spell of hill snow for northern England and Scotland. But the biggest cause for concern are the winds widely across the UK, away from the southeast, 60 or even 70 mile-per-hour wind gusts. But for Irish Sea coast, Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, through northern England and North Wales, the risk during the first half of Friday of 80 or 90 mile-per-hour wind gusts. That could cause serious disruption and damage in places.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, still to come, we're going to meet the woman behind one of Queen Camilla's favourite beauty tricks, and it's all to do with bees. We'll tell you more about that next.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
7:29 morning to you. Now, time is running out. If you want to be our biggest ever giveaway winner, you could win £50,000, totally tax-free. Here's how you enter.
Imagine how £50,000 in cash from us could make your new year go with a bang.
Hi, my name's Victoria. I won the Spring Great British giveaway. So the day we got the money in our bank account, everything just felt a lot lighter. I would say if you're thinking about entering, just enter.
For another chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yes, good luck. Now, if it's good enough for Queen Camilla, you would think it's good enough for us, right? Well, that is the case for one of the Queen's most beloved beauty hacks, bee venom facials, would you believe?
That sounds a bit odd, doesn't it? Well, the founder of the company that does all of this, Deborah Mitchell, has now been awarded the Royal Seal of Approval. She's got an official warrant.
And it wasn't always happy days for Deborah, who has overcome significant challenges before starting her beauty brand called Heaven Skincare.
Well, Deborah's here. Good to see you this morning.
Hello.
Nice to see you.
Good morning. Nice to see you.
What's your journey been then? How have you got to this point of being someone running a company with a royal warrant?
Well, I started off as a mobile beauty therapist, and I used to make my products and hand them to my clients because I couldn't afford products. So never had a loan or anything, and gradually the business built up. And then one day, out of the blue, in my salon, I got a phone call, and I thought it was another beauty brand or something speaking to me. And this phone call was actually for me to go to Clarence's house.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, that's nice, you know.
Did you believe it, or did you think this was a scam? Or
I was like, not sure.
Yeah.
So I sort of thought, oh, well, let's go for it, you know. So I arrived at Clarence's house, and straight away, I did 2 members of the royal family on that day. So obviously, Queen Camilla now, she actually gave me the royal warrant, so that's the one I can talk about.
Yes.
You know, it's like, but I didn't even tell my mum I was going.
Oh.
Really?
So for like 4 years, I didn't even say to my mum.
And were you told not to?
Well, I just like to keep my customers really private and safe, you know. And then, and Queen Camilla is absolutely amazing, as are other royals that I meet when I go to different palaces and things like that.
It must be surreal then.
Yes.
I mean, just spending time with the Queen.
It is.
But it must be extraordinary.
It is really incredible because she is the most lovely person, and she really champions businesses, and she talks about my business with me, and she actually came to our factory.
Did she?
And she did, yeah. And we're just so lucky to know her. She talks. My daughter's here, Ella, and she asks about her because she's in my business as well, supporting. And I mean, the bee venom mask, it's actually this silver one here. When I first developed this silver bee venom, I actually tested it on Camilla straight away.
Did you? Well, that was brave.
Yeah.
You tested it on
her? Well, I should say Her Majesty, not Camilla. Yeah, so I tested it on her, and she loved it straight away. And
Did she know she was a guinea pig?
Yeah, she did. She did. She didn't mind. She didn't mind. So, and she absolutely loved it straight away. Nobody knew, and then it hit out in the press. And when it did, that obviously her skin had changed and she looked different, people were saying, what's happened, what's happened? So it went in all the press, and even went to South Korea. There was big posters of me in South Korea holding another jar of cream. And other companies copied these products. Not the jars, but they put bee venom in products. And it wasn't my bee venom. And she, you know, I was upset about that because, you know, I'd worked hard for my brand.
Yeah.
And having a royal warrant meant that now it's going to be on the packaging, which is amazing.
And it is that royal seal of approval, isn't it? When did you find out that you were going to get this royal warrant? Did Her Majesty tell you herself, or did you find out another way?
Yes, I was told, but do you know, until it comes through the door, literally, the actual letter, you don't know whether you're going to get it. And it's like, oh, you know, it's like so, it's history, isn't it? It's incredible. And I mean, this product, it's sustainable, you see. So sustainability with us, there's no box with this, and these are all recyclable.
Right.
And
how do you even come up with the idea to put bee venom in a face cream?
Well, I'm very much an entrepreneur, and I know how to sort of think of new ideas of ingredients. So this particular product, the bee venom, the bees are milked; they don't die, so bees aren't harmed.
So you can milk a bee. How do you milk a bee?
Yeah, you literally milk a bee.
How?
So it stings a pane of glass, and the venom runs down, and then you collect it up.
Right.
But the skin responds to it, and it thinks it's been stung. So basically, it's saving the skin's life. So it's like having Botox, but Botox or injectables don't work on static lines, whereas this will work on static lines. And as you can see with me, my face can move, and I don't look...
You've got lovely
plastic.
Yeah, and that it is great. and it's a great moisturiser. But that's not just her favourite one. These are her favourite products that I've bought.
And what's that you're holding there?
So this is Age Defiance. It's one of my very first moisturisers I made, and everybody loves this. But there's something unusual about that. When the light hits that cream on your skin, it actually sends peptides into your tissues. So these lights aren't good for our skin.
No.
Blue lights aren't good. But with this, that makes the skin younger when it hits the blue light.
Oh, well, younger's got to be a good thing.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, at least you can say on all your packaging, not tested on animals, tested on royals.
Yeah, yes,
which is a great thing to do. We're out of time, but Deborah, it's really good to see you. Thank you very much indeed.
Oh, my God, you...
Wow.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Well, still to come, Paul Coy will be here with all of our latest sports news. That's next.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Tyne and Wear, the A182 is closed in both directions along the High Street at Easington Lane after a fire at a derelict building. There are delays to Tyne and Wear metro services after a technical problem earlier. In West Yorkshire, the A63 is closed in both directions along Selby Road in Micklefield after an accident yesterday afternoon. On the M62 in West Yorkshire, the inside lanes closed westbound after an accident between junctions 25 and 24 from Brighouse to Ainley Top. On the M26 in Kent, it's taking around 20 minutes in queues approaching the M25 because of lane closures for roadworks. And in West Sussex, the A272 remains closed in both directions along Coneyhurst Road at Billingshurst. And that's after an accident yesterday afternoon. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Estelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
This was thought to be a Ruskin. Ruskin was a very considerable polymath, an artist as well as many other things. So do you know why it was submitted for reappraisal? Was there a bit of a suspicion that it had been misidentified?
No, as you say, you know, it's a service that Christie's offer. You can submit an artwork that you have, so anyone can submit it and request an estimate, and then the auction house's appraisal service allows you space as well to describe it and ask for evaluation. And Christie's sort of looked at it behind the sheet of dirty old glass and recognised a sort of Turner-esque mood and feel and ambience about it. And because there was this close relationship between Ruskin and Turner, which is fascinating, we'll come on to that shortly, but they sort of felt, well, the brushstrokes are very strong, the line is very economic, and the colour of the palette seems to be rather Turner-esque. And then they called in a specialist paper historian who confirmed that actually the paper that was used was one that Turner favoured himself. So yes, it was originally considered to be by Ruskin, but then we discovered something more magnificent. And don't forget, what's really interesting, now it's for sale. The lucky buyer is not just buying a picture. The lucky buyer is buying a life story, a relationship that actually changed the course of art history because of the relationship between Ruskin and Turner themselves.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's sports time.
We see we're both too keen to get
all together, one at a time. Here we go.
Paul Coit.
Yes,
He's
sir.
here. Good morning.
Good morning. Paris Saint-Germain.
Yes.
Oui.
Oui.
4. Manchester City 2.
Oh.
Oh no, it wasn't 0. No, it was 2.
Oh.
And
but that's I mean, but they went up, didn't they?
They did. They were 2-0 up.
I mean, this is the we see this time and time again in Manchester City.
Yeah, absolutely right. So they were 2-0 up and went on to lose. That's another French That's another French city there. Toulouse.
Yeah,
So it wasn't Toulouse, it was Paris. It wasn't Toulouse. So I just want to make that clear right now. Although they did go on to lose, but not against Toulouse. It was a Paris Saint-Germain onslaught, quite frankly, after the 2 goals that Manchester City scored. There's Erling there, who's got his new deal for 50 years that he's just signed to play for Manchester City. So Paris Saint-Germain, they're different than the Galacticos that they used to be, but they're a very, very good side. And they just... City collapsed. I mean, it's fair to say they collapsed. I think any City fan would say that. Just wasn't good. So it's the 9th time this season they've been ahead and not won the game. So now they're in all sorts of trouble if they want to carry on in the Champions League. So they're in 25th position, which is basically means elimination.
So they've got to win.
They're playing Club Bruges next. That's at home. They have to win, and that is just to go into the playoff knockout bit, which is, and they probably don't need another game. So, and when you've got Celtic, who are doing much better than Manchester City, they beat Young Boys, who are bottom, by the way. They're 36th place, so they're gone. They've sealed their playoff place, first time in 12 years. They'll be playing knockout football in European competition. Thought there's a chance, then we're going to blow it. Missed a penalty, 3 goals disallowed, but then scored right towards the end, so Celtic are good. And Arsenal, easy there, 3-0 against Dinamo Zagreb, and only heavy defeat in Girona, who they're playing next, would then affect them. So they look fine.
Tonight you're playing Hoffenheim.
Hoffenheim. You know how bad Hoffenheim have been, haven't you?
Really bad.
That's right. Well, we were talking about it. You were telling me about Hoffenheim, weren't you?
Yes,
about Hoffenheim are not doing very well. They're having a horrible time, and it's bizarre because Spurs and Hoffenheim are both completely out of form.
Yeah.
Both 15th in their leagues. Both were 3-0 down at half-time, although Spurs got it back to 3-2. They ended up losing 5-0. 27th in the Europa League, Hoffenheim. Spurs should win, but you never know with Tottenham. So they need to win tonight. They're currently 9th, which is one off the instant qualification into the Europa League. And Manchester United, Battle of Britain, they're playing Rangers tonight at Old Trafford, and we know that Manchester United are having trouble as well. So it's some interesting games.
It's not that long ago you would have looked at that and said, oh, it's Man United is just going to walk it.
Of course.
But clearly not anymore.
Yeah, of course. And with Manchester United and Ruben Amorim, the manager's come in, said we're the worst Manchester United team there's ever been, tried to clear it up a little bit yesterday, but they are in all sorts of trouble, and Rangers are looking better, so I wouldn't be surprised if Rangers get something at Old Trafford tonight.
Well, we're being yelled at.
You are kidding me. I've got Olympic medals that have gone rusty. Well, I'll have to hold on to them.
But we are going to have a longer session in the next hour.
We promise.
As it were. Think of the pints. A longer session. Right. See you later.
Now, if you're in search of some winter sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you're tempted to leave the stormy weather in the UK behind and search for some winter sun, actually, there will be some across the Mediterranean, certainly some sunny spells for the Canaries, just 1 or 2 showers around. Windier for Portugal, that's all connected to Friday's storm in the UK, a few showers for Spain, but a lot of fine weather across Italy and Greece aside from the odd shower. Then it does turn much more unsettled across Spain, Portugal and into parts of France during the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Lately, it's getting much better. The people getting more educated in terms of overall well-being of the skin health rather than temporary aesthetic treatments. Because most of the treatments in aesthetic, it doesn't change the texture of the skin. It just gives like volumetric result or remove the wrinkles temporarily.
So what are the most popular treatments that people are after?
According to a statistic report, first is anti-wrinkle, then dermal filler, then energy-based device. But lately, biostimulators also became very popular. And
what do you mean by biostimulators?
Biostimulator, any substance that can change the texture of the skin, or like it will lead to postpone the aging process, or proliferate more collagen, increase the elasticity of the skin, such as polynucleotide or exosome, or different vitamins and minerals in a form of mesotherapy considered as a biostimulator.
Turkey's a particularly popular destination because the costs are so much lower. There have also been a lot of horror stories about what can happen when things go wrong, even people dying from post-surgery complications. What would you advise people?
Choose, as a practitioner or surgeon, very carefully, and never prioritize price over quality. This is your face, after all, your body, after all. And mistakes can be reversible. It can be irreversible, and sometimes it's not like a booking restaurant or hotel. It's a sensitive matter that can affect their confidence and skin and body for life. So they need to choose very wisely. They need to search what kind of methodology that particular surgeon, they perform the treatments. Are they using any safety tools?
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. We're going through the papers with political commentator Alex Armstrong and the author and journalist Susan Holder. Morning, you two.
Good morning.
And we're going to start with this, Alex, in the Times, internships.
Yes.
So going to graduates with the best family connections.
Well, isn't that funny? Hey, who would have thought it?
Go on, confess. Confess.
Well, OK, so it was technically work experience.
There we go.
I wasn't paid. But I was only 15, and I got very, very grateful that my family got me a little week with a lawyer somewhere, which obviously I didn't pursue anyway because I'm here. So
not in a legal capacity.
Not quite a high-flying lawyer. But this is the reality, unfortunately, for a lot of young people that are trying to get into internships or trying to get work experience, that they are having to rely on family connections rather than actually having an open process. I can't find the stats for some reason, but there's some very interesting stats in the Times that show, people that some internships aren't even advertised. They're coming through, just backhanders through parents and family connections, but also showing that, of course, those who are poorest and working class are the ones that are missing out.
Well, should we be surprised?
Well, if you're not being paid, of course you need to have some sort of backup for being do that.
Also, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
That's
well,
right.
It can be, but having said that, I'm a big advocate of kind of putting yourself out there, and work experience, as we used to call it in my day, was the way to get a job. And you did, and I did. That's exactly how I got into being a journalist. I went and banged on the door of our local newspaper and kept going in there until they kind of let me kind of start doing stuff. Made myself indispensable and eventually got a job.
Can I ask you, because I did three internships. One of them was I was just 15, it was work experience. The other two I got through a process. Were you paid?
No, I wasn't paid at
either.
First, of course not.
No.
No.
Now you are almost, you have to have paid internships, which obviously lowers the amount of internships available. And saying 31% of graduates got their jobs through internships.
This is it. It sets you up, doesn't it? Because if you do well at an internship, you get your first job, and then from there you're on the ladder.
But then there's less of them because businesses are having to cover the cost of a graduate who actually is not going to add any value to them.
But then the unpaid internships, it kept those industries middle class, because the only way you could do the internships was if you were staying with a family friend in London.
I wasn't from that, but I had another job that paid. You'd go and work in a shop, or you'd kind of sell Avon or whatever I could do to just get a bit of money. But what I wanted to do was work in a newspaper, so I went and did that unpaid until a job came up, and I was you stood there by the editor's desk, and they give you a chance.
That's right.
Yeah. Can we have a look at something a little bit lighter, Susan? And this is about Stock Aitken and Waterman.
Oh yes.
Because if you're of an age, which these two aren't, I've never heard of them. Stock Aitken and Waterman, every hit in the charts
they had.
was from the Hit Factory.
It was called the Hit Factory. So Mike Stock, Matt Aitken and Pete Waterman, who's a great guy, I do know Pete, were behind so many of the hits of the 80s and 90s. So you might not have heard of Stock Aitken and Waterman, but you would know Rick Astley, Kylie Minogue, Bananarama, all the kind of things that were in their stable. So they've been given, the Hit Factory in Southwark has been given a blue pack by Historic England to commemorate where all that happened. And there was a ceremony yesterday. So so that's just commemorating that kind of era.
I don't know Matt Aitken, but I do know Pete Waterman.
We know him from Pop Idol.
Pop Idol, there you go. So you must have seen him from the same. So that's how I know him. Obviously, he's a big legend, but that's the only reference I can give you on the story.
But you would know the songs and you would know those artists.
You would. And Mike Stock's still working away.
Yeah. But so they wrote the songs, they produced them in the Hit Factory, and they had a formula for a while that just everything they touched seemed to turn gold. And
churned about.
Yeah, really amazing.
Shame because we don't seem to have that kind of like British industry so much anymore. I know we've got big British artists, but do we have the same music industry that we used to have?
I don't know, but I mean, it was...
Well, the music industry has changed a lot because selling records now isn't something that actually makes a lot of money. You have to tour to make money because people don't buy records, they stream them, and there is no money to be made in that.
I mean, it was manufactured pop, but it was the sound of an era.
But it was good. There were good songs. They could still be good songs.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I agree, absolutely.
Alex, should we look at this story in The Sun? 1,000 illegal migrants have already crossed the Channel to the UK. I think this is a GB News story.
It was.
Yesterday.
Correct, yes, of course.
And this is the highest number in January, so it's a record, isn't it?
I wouldn't want to say it's an all-time high, but it's certainly the highest it's been for 2 years.
Yes.
So this same time last year, there were 621 migrants. So that's a comparison. Today, there's 1,019. So that's the situation here. Now, of course, this is on the back of... The Prime Minister and the Home Secretary making promises that they're going to smash the gangs and get on top of it. With how many months in are we in for this government now? And I think people are starting to ask questions, OK, when is this policy going to have an impact? Because obviously this isn't slowing down and it's the middle of winter. I know the waters are slightly calm on some days. This is not peak season for crossings. No. So we can't rely on the weather to stop it. And I think really the story here is that how much more can we continue to take in? I know the government are ramping up deportations, but I think it still highlights the problem that we haven't got on top of this issue. Italy, on contrast, are down by 59%. They've managed to crack down.
And how have they done that, do we know?
They've done that, interestingly, by funding Libyan and Tunisian governments and their border force, and so they actually pay for them to go out and stop the boat.
We do that with France.
That's the question. Apparently, the French aren't as good as the Libyans or Tunisians, clearly. So that's a really big question I think people will be asking.
Yeah. All right, let's finish up because we've only got a minute. We'll have a look at something quite nice, which is Rizzo.
Yes, so if you remember the film Grease, I was surprised to see in the Times there's a big supplement on Stockard Channing, who played Rizzo, who was always my favourite. I always wanted to be Rizzo and not Sandy. And she's 80, which I was quite alarmed at. But then you have to remember that in 1978, when the film came out and she was playing a teenager, she was actually 33.
Wow.
Was she?
She was. All of them, John Travolta and all those characters, and Olivia Newton-John, were all a lot older than the kind of 17, 18-year-olds they were playing. But there's a really nice piece. She lives in London now. She's on the West End stage in a play called Electra, I think, at the moment. And she was also in The West Wing with Charlie Sheen. She's a great actress. She's 80. She's still on stage. And she actually looks, if you can see her there, she looks amazing.
She's always looked young for her age then, obviously.
She obviously has. And I love that film, Grease. And people moan about the fact they were playing older than they were, but it doesn't really matter because it's a great film.
Yeah.
And she's still going, still looking amazing.
Lovely, you two. Thank you very much indeed. We'll see you later on.
Now, it's going to be very windy out there today. Let's get all the details with Aidan McGibbon.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A big change in the weather on the way. A spell of wind and rain today. That clears later. Then some even wetter and windier weather expected throughout Friday and Saturday with Storm Eowyn moving in. Now, this system At the start of today isn't Storm Eowyn, but it is going to bring a spell of heavy rain across the country for a few hours, along with some very gusty winds, 50, 60 mile-per-hour wind gusts for southern and western England, as well as Wales. But it does move through. Brighter skies follow for Northern Ireland, Wales and the south by the end of the day, whilst the wet weather remains across Scotland and eastern England. Eventually, though, that tends to push northeastwards with clearing skies across the southern half of the UK. We're going to see temperatures fall away, lighter winds as well. So a fine end to Thursday, but quite a number of showers into North Wales, Northern England and Northern Ireland. And the most unsettled weather is expected at 6 p.m. across Scotland, with showers falling as sleet and snow over the hills. It's going to be blustery as well as the day comes to a close across Scotland. But overnight, those winds tend to ease, and with clear spells, temperatures fall away. A touch of frost likely for eastern and northeastern parts of the country, but that's only ahead of a very fierce low that's moving in overnight. This is Storm Eowyn, likely to bring widespread disruption by the start of Friday. Heavy rain, especially in the southwest, a spell of hill snow for northern England and Scotland. But the biggest cause for concern are the winds widely across the UK, away from the southeast, 60 or even 70 mile-per-hour wind gusts. But for Irish Sea coast, Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, through northern England and North Wales, the risk during the first half of Friday of 80 or 90 mile-per-hour wind gusts. That could cause serious disruption and damage in places.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Tyne and Wear, the A182 is closed in both directions along the High Street at Easington Lane after a fire at a derelict building. There are delays to Tyne and Wear Metro services after a technical problem earlier. In West Yorkshire, the A63 remains closed in both directions along Selby Road in Micklefield after an accident yesterday afternoon. On the M4 in Berkshire, 2 out of 5 lanes are closed eastbound after an accident between junctions 5 and 4B from Langley to the M25, causing delays. It's the inside 2 lanes that are closed. On the M26 in Kent, it's taking nearly half an hour in queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks. In West Sussex, the A272 is closed along Coneyhurst Road in Billingshurst after an accident yesterday, and there are delays of up to half an hour to trains between Weymouth and Bournemouth because of poor rail conditions and a faulty train. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Imagine how £50,000 in cash from us could make your new year go with a bang.
Hi, my name's Victoria. I won the Spring Great British giveaway. So the day we got the money in our bank account, everything just felt a lot lighter. I would say if you're thinking about entering, just enter.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. A day of reckoning for the Southport killer.
Axel Rudakubana will be sentenced for the murder of 3 little girls, Alice De Silva Aguirre, BB King and Elsie Stankham.
Well, as a public inquiry begins to get to the root of how so many red flags were missed.
A measure of justice has been done, but for the victims, the injured and the affected, we must see a fundamental change in how Britain protects its citizens and its children.
Axel Rudakubana has shown absolutely no remorse for the horrific crimes he committed, as well as being sentenced. This will be an opportunity for the families, with victim impact statements, to speak of the absolute devastation they feel at the crimes this man committed.
Shock new statistics. An estimated 1 million people are living illegally in the UK, with up to 1 in 12 London residents thought to be illegal migrants.
Yes, nearly 600,000 people said to be living illegally just in the capital. That is, as we discover that 1,000 people made that channel crossing since the start of the year.
There's a tornado warning for parts of England today. You find out how you'll be affected.
Ahead of Storm Eowyn, an unsettled day today before some very lively weather arrives during tomorrow. I'll have the very latest on the storm and what you can expect in the weather.
NIMBYs look away now because the government overhauls planning rules in a bid to get Britain building. We'll be talking to the Minister for Housing about that just after 9 a.m.
There's research out this morning that says more adults are now smoking and vaping. We're asking, is vaping a gateway to smoking?
And in sport, Manchester City capitulate in the Champions League against Paris Saint-Germain, while Celtic and Arsenal win. Thank you very much. We have the Igor Swiatek double bounce furore from the Australian Open, and Lewis Hamilton has tested his new Ferrari, and it's very nice, and it's rather fast.
It's just gone 8 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast. No, I don't think I did.
You did. You had 3. Before we came on air this morning, Ellie said we're sorted for like.
She said we have 3 stories
to talk about.
Yes, that's right.
We had coffee on toast at 6 o'clock. We had
Haunted House.
Adele's Haunted House, and you had another one.
Oh, you've got to keep your dogs on a lead today. Oh, no, I do. Yeah, hang on. Hold your horses. Now, I did my homework this morning and I read through all the papers and I selected some nice stories to talk about, so you're welcome.
Thank you.
And here's the third one.
It's more than me and Paul did.
Yes,
I selected earlier. I feel like I'm on Blue Peter. Right, so, do you feel blue?
No,
not anymore.
No.
Because if you did feel blue, because it's January, of course, the January blues, you wouldn't be alone, because apparently dogs suffer as well.
No, really?
Give over.
Our dogs suffer in the month of January.
Don't believe that.
Just like we do. Yeah, it's true. This is research from Guide Dogs UK. So,
well.
I mean, we're not very good as owners, it must be said, in the month of January. I say we, like I own a dog. I'd like to, but not yet.
Okay.
23% of owners have cut their walk short because it's too cold and windy outside.
Oh, I see. But that's for the good of the dog, though.
Well, I don't know.
Of course it is. I agree with that entirely.
Yeah.
But it's having an impact on the dogs, Coity. 1 in 4 dogs found to be lethargic and lacking energy in January.
Well, that's good, though.
Just like us.
Yes.
That's good. It makes life easier.
And 1 in 7 of them appear anxious or bored.
Oh, dear.
So, Rex?
No, he's not
how's he
anxious
feeling?
or bored. He's fine. He's sleeping a lot at the minute, which is lovely.
Nellie has been in
Nellie and Dudders?
my work bag, where I put all my bits and pieces in, obviously. Every time I come, Nellie is in there. She's learnt how to pull up the bag open, it's like a little leather briefcase thing. She goes straight in, stuff everywhere.
Oh, no.
She did a whole packet of Bicidol yesterday.
What's Bicidol?
Bicidol is, you know, for
heartburn.
Yeah, heartburn and stuff like that. And I'm thinking,
oh, no.
Oh my goodness, what do we do? You
Is she okay?
find yeah, she's burping left, right. That's dinner's gone down very well. The bones went down, but yeah, she's burping and stuff. But apparently that's. I hope it's fine. But do you have a jacket for Rex for outside?
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
Because do dogs need a coat, or is that real?
I don't know. To be honest, I don't think they do. But
Yeah.
I'm not in charge.
OK, fine.
I'm not in charge.
It's nice to see them all cosy and cuddly.
They do look nice, but I mean, trying to get the jacket on him is a nightmare.
I can imagine, yeah, because it's probably bigger than yours now, isn't it? It's probably has to be a great big thing.
It's huge. I mean,
yeah.
that's what I can do with my old jackets, just give them to Rex.
Yeah,
put
put the arms in,
Oh,
put the hood up over the top of his ears. Yeah, that's the thing, I don't know, because it's so cold. I don't know whether I should be having for Dudley and Nellie, should have a little coat or a jumper or anything, but...
Are you cutting their walk short?
No, not really. Yeah,
owners?
but if it's really bad, I mean, if it's really rainy and windy, the dogs don't want to, I don't want to.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't make sense.
Well, let us know if that's you, if your dog is feeling the effects of the January blues. gbnews.com/yoursay.
Now, onto the main news this morning, and the child killer, Axel Rudakubana, will be sentenced at 11 o'clock today.
Alice De Silva Aguirre, BB King and Elsie Dot Stankham were murdered in a vicious knife attack at a Taylor Swift-themed dance class last July.
Well, just this Monday, 18-year-old Rudakubana pled guilty to their murders, as well as producing a biological toxin and being in possession of the Al-Qaeda training manual.
Well, GB News Home and Security editor Mark White looks at how the killer was left unchecked to carry out his terrible crimes and how the nationwide riots that followed caused a political crisis.
In the aftermath of the horrific events in Southport, anger and disorder struck many communities. Amid a perception authorities were not disclosing key facts about teenage killer Axel Rudakubana, a young man with a violent and deeply disturbing mindset that saw him refer to the Prevent Counter-Extremism programme 3 times, as well as multiple other agencies. We now know, as confirmed by the Prime Minister this week, that information was withheld. Sir Keir Starmer said it was done to ensure any forthcoming trial would not be prejudiced.
The importance of the rule about not disclosing this information is to ensure that the trial can take place and that where an individual is guilty, they're held to account.
But with little official information in the aftermath of the stabbings, the void was filled with online speculation and rumour, which only compounded the sense of outrage and anger. Axel Rudakubana was first referred to the Prevent programme back in 2019 when he was just 13 years of age, after he took a knife to his former school in Formby. It was one of 10 occasions he admitted carrying a knife at school. After being excluded, he returned and assaulted pupils with a hockey stick. He was open in discussing his desire to carry out a school massacre. Yet it seems because there was no apparent evidence that his views were aligned to any particular terrorist group or ideology, counter-extremism practitioners decided not to intervene. Police, the courts, youth justice, social services and other safeguarding agencies also failed to respond in any meaningful way as Rudakubana's downward spiral towards serious violence intensified. And other questions still remain unanswered. A week before the Southport attacks, the teenager's father pleaded with a local taxi driver not to drive him to his former high school, where it's thought he was planning to carry out an attack there. Despite the deadly toxin ricin and Al-Qaeda jihadist documents being discovered at his home just days after the attack, it took a further 3 months before a terror charge and a biological weapons charge were added to the indictment and the public informed. In the months ahead, a public inquiry may provide some answers. Today, the focus is on the length of time in prison the trial judge will decide is the most appropriate response to the most evil and horrific of crimes. Mark White, GB News, Merseyside.
Well, Mark joins us now. I mean, it beggars belief, Mark, that so many flags were raised to the right people as well, but action, it was decided that action would not be taken.
Yes, indeed, and I'm not sure how much additional light is going to be shone on that today. We're going to get a summary of the prosecution case against him laid before the court, but that's only going to last an hour or two, not enough time to go into really answering a lot of the very searching questions there are thrown up by this particular case. That will probably come out in the fullness of time, we hope, during this public inquiry. There certainly will be a great deal of pressure for those questions to be answered. But today, of course, is about the sentencing of Axel Rudakubana. After the prosecution sets out the case, of course, as is the custom and practice, we will get mitigation from his legal team. To be honest, I don't give a damn what this young man says in his defence and mitigation. To be honest, he has failed to engage in any way, shape or form with the legal process so far. He's shown absolute contempt for that process. Every time he's appeared in the dock, he's sat there refusing to answer basic questions, to confirm his name, his date of birth, his home address. He's held a jumper up over his head during his time in court as well. As I say, showing absolute contempt for the legal process, for the bereaved families. Well, I'm much more interested in talking about and exploring. It will be heartbreaking to try to relay this to people, but the victim impact statements that we're expecting to hear quite a number of during the course of the day, the way in which the bereaved families have been left absolutely and utterly devastated by the impact of this man's horrific crimes. Let's hear from them for once, for what they've got to say, and not focus so much on this killer.
No, absolutely right, Mark. In terms of sentencing, what are we expecting, considering that the attack was carried out when Axel Rudakubana was 17? Could he potentially be given a whole life order, or will his age mean that that won't be applicable in this case?
Well, frustratingly, because he was 17 at the time of the crime, and unless there is any change in the law, a whole life tariff cannot be handed down. So in other words, they cannot impose a sentence that means he will never see the light of day again and will die behind bars. Having said that, though, because of the many aggravating circumstances surrounding the events at the Heart Space Centre in Southport on the 31st of July last year, the judge can impose a very significant sentence in terms of a stipulation that he must serve however many decades behind bars before he's even considered for release. And of course, being considered for release doesn't mean necessarily that you will be released in the fullness of time anyway. And it has to be, of course, the hope of the families and the wider communities that the sentence, even if it can't be a whole life tariff, is at least a sentence that will see this man being a very, very old man before he's ever considered for release from prison.
OK, Mark, for now, thanks very much indeed. Mark was talking about the witness statements, the impact statements in all of this. Susan's been in touch. Morning, Susan. And I understand where she's coming from. She says, I wish the family of the 3 beautiful girls and other victims that will have lifelong trauma would think twice about giving their witness statements in front of him. I think he would relish hearing the heartbreak he caused. Why give him that? I mean, you may or may not be right. I mean, whether it's going to be cathartic for them to do that, I don't know. But you make a very good point.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. And as Mark says, Axel Rudakubana has not engaged once in the court process, hasn't responded when asked his name. He's held his jumper up to his eyes every time, shown no remorse whatsoever. So I can't imagine he would feel remorse hearing those statements. But as you say, it might be cathartic for the family.
Right, let's move on, should we, at 14 minutes past 8, to the news that the Telegraph has revealed there are more than 1 million illegal migrants in the UK. 60% of them living in the capital.
Well, the study was actually commissioned by Thames Water, and it found that London is home to an estimated 585,000 illegal migrants.
Concerns over border control failures, pressure on public services are growing, but official figures from the Home Office are not available to the public.
Well, we're joined now by GB News political correspondent Catherine Forster, who's in Westminster for us. And Catherine, this is a huge population underestimate, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And isn't it amazing that these figures have come from this Freedom of Information request via Thames Water, because Thames Water, of course, modelling what supply of water is needed to the capital. But the Home Office don't publish any figures. In fact, the Home Office have said that this data is based on out-of-date information, and that there is, in fact, no officially recognised way of measuring how many legal migrants are in Britain. So it sounds like not only does the Home Office not publish these figures, but potentially the Home Office does not even know. Remember, of course, that the Brexit vote, we were promised take back control, including of our borders. It seems very clear that we have got nothing of the sort. So 1 million people estimated, and many saying that may be an underestimate, to be in the country illegally, 600,000 of those in London. As you've said, of course, huge implications for what that means for schools, hospitals, and so on. And the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, saying that this is deeply alarming. We know that 1,000 people crossed the Channel illegally so far this year in small boats. That's up on the previous year. But I think it is worth saying that, 40,000 near enough crossed the Channel illegally on small boats last year. But many, many more are coming in simply by overstaying their visas, by coming in legally and then not going home. So the very visible crisis in the Channel is just a very small part of this. Now, the government, for their part, are saying, look, we've got deportations up. They're saying we're sent back 16,400 people who were in the country illegally in the first 6 months. They're saying that's the biggest number for 5 years. But, this is a massive, massive problem. And for all the people that can't get doctor's appointments or, can't get their kids into the local school, I think they will feel right to feel angry. But, of course, illegal migration, just a fraction of the total legal migration, which governments have allowed hundreds of thousands of people to come into the country legally just over the last few years.
Indeed so. Catherine, thanks very much indeed. Now, of course, as Catherine was saying there, one of the impacts of all of this is the impact that it has on everything in the UK, and it's part of the reason why the economy is struggling so much at the moment. So here's a question for you. It's our poll of the day. Should Rachel Reeves prioritise reducing our debt or economic growth?
Well, get involved. You can scan the QR code on your screen now, or you can go to gbnews.com/poll. The final results, as always, will be in Martin Daubney's show this afternoon.
It's 18 minutes past 8. These are the other stories this morning, and a police hunt is underway in Plymouth after a person was seriously assaulted. Police called to the Westco area at 9 o'clock last night. There's a large police presence still in place. Officers say they're searching for a male suspect.
Tributes are pouring in for a 12-year-old boy who was stabbed to death in Birmingham. Leo Ross has been described as funny and sweet by his teacher and was adored by friends. A 14-year-old boy has been arrested on suspicion of murder.
Donald Trump has given his first interview since being sworn into the office of president on Monday. Sat down with Fox News' Sean Hannity in the Oval Office. The president blasted his predecessor over his last-minute pardons and the California Governor Gavin Newsom over his handling of the wildfires. He also revealed why the January 6 rioters were pardoned.
Treated like nobody's ever been treated so badly. They were treated like the worst criminals in history. And you know what they were there for? They were protesting the vote because they knew the election was rigged and they were protesting the vote. And that you should be allowed to protest a vote. You should be allowed to.
An effort to free 5 elderly elephants from Colorado Zoo in the United States has failed. The state's highest court has ruled that they don't have a right to request their freedom because they're not human. Animal advocate group Non-Human Rights Project brought the case in a bid to move the herd to a sanctuary.
Yeah, that's a weird story.
It's a bit.
If they need some better care and taken to a sanctuary, they can't request their freedom.
Well, they can't.
Of course they can't. Someone else has to do it for them.
Because they're animals, yeah, they have to be advocated for.
Yes. What a very odd court ruling. Anyway,
Very
there
strange.
you go.
Anyway.
Right, shall we see what the weather's going to do for you today? Because it's not a nice picture over this next couple of days. Here's Aidan.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A big change in the weather on the way. A spell of wind and rain today. That clears later. Then some even wetter and windier weather expected throughout Friday and Saturday with Storm Eowyn moving in. Now, this system at the start of today isn't Storm Eowyn, but it is good to bring a spell of heavy rain across the country for a few hours, along with some very gusty winds, 50, 60 mile-per-hour wind gusts for southern and western England, as well as Wales. But it does move through. Brighter skies follow for Northern Ireland, Wales and the south by the end of the day, whilst the wet weather remains across Scotland and eastern England. Eventually, though, that tends to push northeastwards with clearing skies across the southern half of the UK. We're going to see temperatures fall away, lighter winds as well. So a fine end to Thursday, but quite a number of showers into North Wales, Northern England and Northern Ireland. And the most unsettled weather is expected at 6 p.m. across Scotland, with showers falling as sleet and snow over the hills. It's going to be blustery as well as the day comes to a close across Scotland. But overnight, those winds tend to ease, and with clear spells, temperatures fall away. A touch of frost likely for eastern and northeastern parts of the country, but that's only ahead of a very fierce low that's moving in overnight. This is Storm Eowyn, likely to bring widespread disruption by the start of Friday. Heavy rain, especially in the southwest, a spell of hill snow for northern England and Scotland. But the biggest cause for concern are the winds widely across the UK, away from the southeast, 60 or even 70 mile-per-hour wind gusts. But for Irish Sea coast, Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, through northern England and North Wales, the risk during the first half of Friday of 80 or 90 mile-per-hour wind gusts. That could cause serious disruption and damage in places.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well, time is running out on your chance to become our biggest ever giveaway winner with an incredible £50,000 in your bank account. Totally tax-free. You can spend it how you like.
Can you?
Yes. Here are all of the details that you need.
There's just 2 weeks left to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize so far. £50,000 in tax-free cash. How would you react if you won?
Oh my God.
That's a big surprise.
Amazing. Just the best feeling ever.
I'm in shock. That is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
For another chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yeah, best of luck to you. Now, still to come, is vaping a gateway to smoking? It's debating that next.
Lee Anderson's Real World. Fridays from 7 p.m.
Aaron McLean, the goal machine here, used to play for Peterborough United. You bagged loads of goals for them back in the day. But I've got a bone to pick with you, young man. You scored at the City ground against Nottingham Forest for, was it Hull City?
For Hull City, yeah.
Why did you do that?
Well, that was my job, unfortunately. I must say, that was actually one of my favourite goals.
Was it really?
Because I remember, obviously, playing at the City ground, unbelievable stadium, historic.
It is great.
So, and we beat you 1-0.
OK, no need to rubbish it. These sports clubs, whether it's football or rugby or whatever, should offer two alternatives, either a professional footballer, or if you don't quite make it, you can still go and play football at a lower level, but have a career as well, maybe be an electrician or a plumber.
100%. You know, listen, I've had multiple conversations with various different people, whether it's the PFA or whether it's clubs. Even players who do have careers, you know, there's so many that don't make it and don't quite make it to the level or only play at a lower level. There's so many that do have long careers, but once you come to the end of that, you've spent, you know, for me, I spent 20 years as a professional footballer. Once I finished playing, what do you then do for the rest of your life? You know, at 35, once you retire, you still have to have a purpose in life. Yeah. But I'd almost be starting from ground zero. I'm fortunate that I went into coaching and then went into the media.
That's good.
But for every one of me, there's hundreds that don't. And I've got so many friends who, I've got to say, you know, have really, really struggled on the, you know, mental health side.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually, because you go from, like, playing in stadiums, big stadiums, small stadiums, crowds, singing your name, and all that sort of stuff, that adulation, the buzz of winning games, and, you know, the downs of losing games, and you go from that to sort of nothing when you finish. I mean, that's a big come down there.
It's a huge come down.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We've just been brought some herbal teas.
Ah, yes.
Because we're being healthy. And but Patty, our floor manager, left teaspoons in.
Oh, we were a bit mystified.
Mystified.
He wanted us to lift out the tea bag with our spoons, but we just leave it there to ferment.
It's a bit like my parents, when they have a cup of soup or similar products are available.
Yes.
They then have a soup spoon and eat it with a spoon.
That completely defines the purpose of a cup of soup.
Instead of drinking it out of a mug. I think it's the strangest thing ever.
Very strange.
They like a cup of soup for lunch, but eat it with a spoon.
But the name is on the tin.
That's what I say. That's what I say. They won't have it.
Oh, wow.
Be watching now.
We don't need any. We don't require spoons ever.
I'll be in trouble. The phone will be going off at 9:30. Anyway.
Now, 1 in 20 people now vape and smoke. That's according to a new study by University College London.
Point of that. Well, does this discredit the theory, then, that vaping can help smokers quit? Is vaping actually a gateway to smoking?
Well, we're debating just that this morning by talking to NHS GP Dr David Lloyd and Director of the UK Vaping Industry Association, John Dunn. Very good morning to you both. Dr David Lloyd, let's start with you. Is vaping a gateway to smoking?
Yes.
And how?
Because nicotine is a phenomenally addictive drug, and vaping and cigarettes are very, very effective nicotine delivery systems. And if you're young or pregnant, you're running huge risks by getting addicted to nicotine. And the young get into this cycle where they think they're using vapes to help their own mental health, and then they stop using it. They get the withdrawal effects and start using more and more of it. And the more you use, the more likely you are to turn to cigarettes in the future.
Forgive me, Dr. Lloyd, but why would you turn to cigarettes and not just keep on vaping, which we do know is a healthier alternative to smoking?
Well, I think people are very confused about it. I think they don't understand. You're absolutely right. Vaping has got a lower risk of health problems than cigarettes, but people are confused. And I think what's so fascinating about this study is that more and more people are doing vaping and cigarette smoking at the same time. So there's something going on which is very disturbing in terms of the use of vapes as we go on. I'm sure, I don't know what you feel, but I just hate vaping as a concept. I hate seeing those people with clouds of smoke on the corners that we see. But the evidence is very real. Nicotine is a very nasty drug, as we've known for decades. And it's particularly dangerous to our youth. It can affect your pregnancy, it can affect your mental health. And it does have cardiovascular effects as well. So although it doesn't cause heart attacks just as much as smoking does, it increases your heart rate, it increases your blood pressure. And there is some evidence that nicotine is also what's called a tumor promoter. So although there's no direct link between lung cancer and smoking and vaping, which, as you know, there is a very strong link, well, an incredible link with smoking, there does seem to be an effect of nicotine via vapes causing cancer later on in life. And what the study shows is that people are going on vaping long into their lives. They're not just using it as a way of trying to stop smoking or trying to move away from smoking. They are using vapes and cigarettes at the same time in large quantities.
OK, how do you respond to that, John?
Well, first of all, it's very disturbing to hear a doctor in the UK speaking about vaping in this way. Vaping is the most successful way that smokers move away from smoking combustible cigarettes in this country. It's twice as effective as all of the other methods combined. And we are now seeing the lowest smoking numbers amongst adults in the UK. We're also seeing the lowest smoking rates in young people in the UK. And what this report actually shows is the opposite of what the doctor is talking about. There is absolutely no evidence anywhere in the world of a gateway effect from vaping into smoking. In fact, the opposite is there. While this report, what it highlights is the fact that, yes, consumers and smokers are confused about the relative risks of vaping. And that's what we need to do a better job of, is to convince these people who are dual using, who are smoking and using vapes at the same time, to move or transition fully over to vaping, because that's when they see the major health benefits of moving away from a product that kills 1 in 2 of its users. 220 people a day die from smoking-related diseases here in the UK, not vaping-related diseases.
Dr. Lloyd, what do you make of that vaping is actually a successful way of getting people to step away from cigarettes?
I agree, but why do we have to have nicotine in our ecosystem anyway? It's an addictive drug. It is one of the most addictive drugs, and it causes harm. Why do we have to legalize vaping? Why do we have to have cigarettes and vapes in our society at all?
John?
It's very simple, because we don't want people smoking. But if we take that premise about everything, right, nothing we do in this world is 100% safe. So what do we ban next, doctor? Do we ban caffeine? That's addictive. Do we ban alcohol? That's addictive. You know,
yes,
it's
get rid of alcohol.
Where do you draw the line? This is about harm reduction. And you know as well as I do that if you smoke, you will more than likely die. So what vaping offers is a safer alternative to consume nicotine. Human beings have consumed nicotine for over 14,000 years. If you think that people are going to stop using nicotine, which is a stimulant, overnight, you're just bonkers.
So let's make it more difficult.
Well, we do make it extremely difficult. Anybody under the age of 18 can't buy nicotine legally in this country. That is a deterrent, although it's not being very well enforced.
So you admit that it is dangerous for youth people under the age of 18.
Well, I think it's inappropriate for people under the age of 18 to use this product.
Dangerous.
You use the word dangerous. It is a stimulant. What you have described by increased blood pressure, the cardiovascular effects. You know as well as I do that there's many things out there that we consume every day that have the similar effects. And, you know, drinking caffeine has this very similar effects over the body than taking nicotine. Nicotine is not what kills people.
There's no evidence
it's the
that
tar
caffeine
in the cigarettes. It's the combustion that kills people, and you know that.
OK, gents, on that note, I'm afraid we do have to leave. It was fascinating to talk to both of you, Dr David Lloyd and John Dunn. Thank you very much indeed.
Let us know what you think. As always, gbnews.com/you'll say. Do stay with us. Paul Coyte's going to be here next with all the latest sports news.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In West Yorkshire, the A63 is closed in both directions along Selby Road at Micklefield after an accident yesterday afternoon. In Worcestershire, the A44 is partly blocked each way by an accident between Egdon and Sneechill, causing delays. There are a number of problems on the M4 in Berkshire, with 2 out of 4 lanes closed westbound just before junction 12 at Reading after an accident causing delays. The eastbound exit at junction 89 at Maidenhead is partly blocked by an accident, and there are 2 out of 5 lanes closed eastbound after an accident between junctions 5 and 4B from Langley to the M25, causing delays. On the M26 in Kent, it's taking half an hour, and queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks. In West Sussex, the A272 is closed each way along Coneyhurst Road in Billingshurst after an accident yesterday afternoon, and there are delays of up to 25 minutes to trains between Weymouth and Bournemouth. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Ironic article in The Guardian, Nick, caring about facts.
Yeah, this is Meta is ushering in a world without facts, says Nobel Peace Prize winner. And they just seem to give these Nobel Peace Prizes to anyone these days. It's Maria Ressa.
Not working.
Zuckerberg came out, and it was very bold. He said a few things. We're going to use community notes instead of fact-checkers. Fact-checkers in inverted commas, because it just means people pushing usually a specific viewpoint. Community notes seems to be a great system that X uses, so why not do that? I think that's great. He's going to reduce restrictions on topics like immigration and gender. Good, because I'm against censorship. He's going to push back on governments around the world that are going after American companies and pushing to censor more, which is great. He's also moving content moderation to Texas instead of California, which is banter. So now the cynical version is he just realises we've got a new regime, it's the MAGA era, and I want to be mates with Trump, who said that I should that if I interfere with the 2024 election, he should spend the rest of his life in prison. So he did mention he might be a bit scared of that. He was involved in that in Facebook suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop scandal, and I feel that he didn't like being a part of all that from watching interviews.
And also the suppression of arguments about gender and sex, what is biological sex and whatnot. You get banned for saying there are two sexes.
They're on the wrong side of this, and now he's correcting. But the weird thing is the people, of course, the people who don't like this, the lefties, this person, Ressa, is saying that this is a big problem. It's an extremely dangerous time. I've seen all this from the lefties. They just call it disinformation. They're worried about this because to them it's disinformation. To other people it's information.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I think we can all agree if people think they're getting their facts just directly from Facebook, then something's horribly wrong. But we know that. The community notes thing, I think, is quite good because that sort of first-hand experience people are putting down, aren't they?
Yeah. People have loads of different views come together, and it's an aggregate, so that's why it works.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Paul Coyte's here at 8:37. Good morning.
I'm here at 8:37. How are you?
I'm all right.
Right, we've got a lot to get through.
City.
I'm going to fly through. Manchester City. I tell you, they were 2-0 up against PSG, Paris Saint-Germain last night in the Champions League. Needed to win, but then they blew it again and they lost 4-2. So now there's one game left and it does not look good for them, although they're playing Club Brugge next week. I think we've won haven't been beaten in about 19 games, so it's going to be tricky for them to qualify for the Champions League. Celtic beat Young Boys 1-0, which means they're in the playoff. They've got one game to go, and Arsenal beat Dinamo Zagreb 3-0, so they were OK. And tonight, in the Europa League, Spurs play Hoffenheim.
Oh, yes.
And Hoffenheim are not having a good time of it, just like Tottenham Hotspur.
Well, neither are Spurs. They've got that in common.
That's correct. So that may mean it's going to be a particularly good game.
It will be a particularly
dodgy game. And Manchester United, this is the Battle of Britain. Manchester United will play Rangers tonight at Old Trafford, and Manchester United also have been having a great time of it, but that's in the Europa League tonight as well. So looking forward to that.
Can we talk about Lewis Hamilton?
Shall we?
At Ferrari, and he's very happy about it.
Yes, let's have a look, shall we? There's Lewis Hamilton in Italy. He's testing Ferraris. They got March. He's when the new season's... Where is he? Where is he? Come on, Lewis. Come on, out you come. Out you come. There he is.
It's very dark.
Look at that big yellow helmet there. It's at the Fiorano track. Ferrari's private track, which is in Modena, which is not far from Bologna, by the way, just in case you wondered where it was.
Where the bolognese sauce comes from.
That's it. Well, I would imagine. Yes. Is that why it's called bolognese sauce? Because it comes from Bologna, or are you just making that up?
I think so.
I think so. Yeah. So I hope he's enjoying it.
There you go. So is it very fast?
You know what? He's terribly fast. His contract is worth £40 million a year, it's thought.
How much?
£40 million a year.
40?
Yeah, 40.
Not bad work if you can get it.
Not bad work if you can get it. And he said, there we are, he's driving in his Ferrari, and he said he's dreamt of driving a Ferrari since he was a child. One of the best feelings of his life. Look at that. You see how fast that is. He's going terribly fast.
It doesn't actually look that fast on the screen. I can imagine it's fast.
That's slow motion, though, Ellie. That is. That's slow motion. First time he's tested the F1 car, and... They haven't won a title in 2 decades, so they're hoping that Lewis is going to do that for them. He's very happy. There we are. That's not terribly fast, is it? That's not terribly fast. He did about 20 around the corner, I believe. So there we are. There he is in Medina.
Oh, well, good on him, good on him.
In Italy. And there's one other thing I want to mention, and that is the Olympic medals.
Yes.
I think we did something on this, didn't we?
We have touched on this. One or two were rusting.
That's right. And this was
all gone.
Well, they're all looking really dodgy. So there's a company called, honestly, Ellie, if ever there was a company for you, it's this company. Look, let's just leave that for a second. Let's look at them looking beautiful. LVMH, and that's the company that looks after Moët, Hennessy, Louis Vuitton, Tiffany, Tag, Christian Dior, Givenchy, Bulgari, and there we are, and Primark. So, well, maybe not them, but there we are. And so this is how high-end this company is. And senior managers from the mint that made the medals for the Olympics have apparently disappeared. There's 3 of them that are not available for comment. Nobody knows what's going on. So they look beautiful there, and there's that little bit of the Eiffel Tower there. You know, they use that as well.
Rusty.
But amazingly, that's the bit that's not rusty.
Really?
That bit looks OK. Can we see how they're looking now? So there's lots of medal winners, particularly the bronze medals that have gone worse. The gold medals and the silver medals, not so bad.
Oh, rubbish.
Look at the state of that.
That's
terrible. It looks like it's been dug up from the ground.
This is 5 months on from the Olympics. This is what you want to keep for the rest of your life.
It looks like 200 years old, doesn't it?
I know, doesn't it? Look at the
So what, they're going to replace them?
Well, I don't think they're going to replace them. They're having to send them back. They say, it's not going to be a matter of that. They've been calling them a defect, or the fact that they've had problems with them as if the athletes have done something to them, which is certainly not the case. And it's almost like when the bronze medal has been on someone's chest and there's sweat involved, and it kind of rots it, and I'm talking about the medal, not the chest. So, awful.
They're going to have to get the Bresso out.
You know, this is it. Isn't like with the 2p, you ever do that? We use brown sauce.
Oh, yeah.
And then that shines it up. So if they've got like some HP, if that doesn't work, then send them back. So I would try that first.
Yeah, give that a go.
That's my advice to all Olympic bronze medalists.
Try the HP.
Very good.
Try HP. Lovely.
Thanks, Coity.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow.
Now, if you're in search of some winter sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
I hope it doesn't rain.
Don't worry about it.
It'll spoil our holiday.
Relax, we're totally covered.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
If you're tempted to leave the stormy weather in the UK behind and search for some winter sun, actually, there will be some across the Mediterranean, certainly some sunny spells for the Canaries, just 1 or 2 showers around. Windier for Portugal, that's all connected to Friday's storm in the UK, a few showers for Spain, but a lot of fine weather across Italy and Greece aside from the odd shower. Then it does turn much more unsettled across Spain, Portugal and into parts of France during the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And
the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Time to go through the papers this morning with political commentator Alex Armstrong, the author and journalist Susan Holder. It's 8:46, and let's start with the Times, Alex. And President Trump is threatening the UK.
He is. Well, I mean, he's threatening everybody, I think, at the moment. He's like taking over Greenland, taking over Canada. I think he's trying to take over a little bit of everybody. But basically what he's saying is that he thinks American businesses have been given a bad hand over the last few years, and this is to do with this global tax that all these countries signed up to, including the United States. And I think this was one of David Cameron's baby ideas, policy ideas, which is that basically big tech companies should pay a global minimum of 15% tax on every country, 100 countries. He's obviously going after the EU most because we've been taxing and putting fines on social media tech giants quite a lot. So he's basically saying, this is going to stop, or I'm going to come after you and put tariffs back on you to protect our economy.
Well, I mean, from a business point of view, I can see where he's coming from.
Well, putting America first is where he set out his stall, and that's what he's intending to do. He does keep threatening the EU, though, and my question is this one possible chink of hope that Brexit might save us something if we're not in the EU? I don't know. Does it work?
Well, it does help us because the EU, of course, is a bloc, and it has to decide its laws as a bloc, and we don't have that worry.
We can negotiate separately on this, can't we?
Exactly. So we have that ability as a sovereign country to negotiate our own trade deals on our own rules.
I mean, I know it sounds bad, and the idea of being threatened with these extra charges and things, it sounds bad. But I have to say, if we were in his shoes, why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah, I totally agree. And
it's not good for us.
He gets a lot of criticism with the Greenland stuff and the Canada stuff, calling the 51st state. But this is what business people do. They set the anchor as close to the most crazy thing possible, so the next thing they ask for doesn't seem so crazy.
That's interesting.
It's like when we said no, there will be a no-deal Brexit on the table. If we didn't say that, we would start the negotiations on a back foot if we took that off the table.
And as a country ourselves, would we not be be better kind of looking at the taxing inputs coming in rather than our own farmers.
Quite right.
Oh, there's a thought,
There's a
Susan.
thought.
Susan, should we look at Prince Harry and
Yes.
his victory against the Sun newspaper?
Yes, some are calling it a Pyrrhic victory. Maybe someone will explain to Prince Harry what that means. But he has been awarded, we think, possibly between 10 to 20 million pounds because he's taking. He wanted to take the Sun to court, and the day in court was due to start yesterday, but they've settled out of court. And the question is, why has he done that? Because yes, he's got the money. Yes, he has. They have issued an apology, although interestingly, not on the front page. Page 6 of the Sun, there's a small piece. Why would he not have demanded a sorry Harry on the front page, like other people who've had to be apologised to, like Elton John previously has had? There's questions about why he's done that, but all credit to him for flushing out this situation of the investigative. What are they called? What do I mean? Private investigators. Who were being used to hack phones.
It's a dirty game.
It wasn't the journalist, but obviously that was being used then journalistically. And as a journalist, I have no truck with any of that. I think that's a dreadful way to operate.
Absolutely.
Yes, we need to hold people in his position, even members of the royal family, to account. We need to ask questions. If he thinks from now on he's never going to have any criticism in the press, I think he'll be find that's not true. But we shouldn't be delving into their personal lives and their personal details. We shouldn't be doing that.
No, I think it's wrong on every level. I mean, what happened? I think the case is correct. And the only question people will ask is that he vowed, and it was his words, I vowed to carry this through to the end, and I have the money to do it. I think those were his sort of words. I don't want to say
it was all about, for him, accountability.
That's right. And so now it looks like he's rescinded on that and gone, oh, there's a big bit of cash here. And there's, speculation.
All right, people can blame and have a go, but who any of us in the same boat would do the same thing.
No, I'm not saying he's done the wrong thing, by the way. I mean, I would take the cash. If it was me, I'd take a lot less.
And the apology. I just don't understand why the apology, it's a newspaper. The one thing you lawyers you would think would ask for is you put it on the front page.
Yeah.
You say you put that prominently.
Well, it might have been, we won't put it on the front page.
Maybe.
Here's an extra £1 million.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, we will never know.
I would go, fair enough.
Never know.
Fair enough.
House in Montecito takes a lot of running.
It does. Should we talk about Stock Aitken and Waterman?
Yes, so they have had a blue plaque erected on what's known as the Hit Factory, which was the place where Stock Aitken and Waterman, who was Mike Stock, Pete Waterman and Matt Aitken, who made all the hits through the 80s and 90s for Kylie Minogue, Rick Astley, Bananarama. There was a
Sunita.
Yes, Sunita. Is she your favourite?
I didn't know she.
He was quick off the mark with that one, wasn't he?
He was with Sunita.
No, she was a...
So macho. I can see why you like that one, Steve.
It was based on me.
It was unveiled yesterday. It was a very unique kind of period of time in music where everything they touched did seem to kind of go gold, and they had 13 number ones, and it was incredible.
Yeah. Well, Pete Waterman has spoken to GB News about the success of Kylie Minogue. Let's have a little listen.
The one thing everybody said, this will never happen. It'll be a 5-minute wonder. Some 5-minute wonder. Because she's talented. She's hugely talented. She knows exactly what her public want, and she gives it to them. I mean, that's... Any artist has to reinvent themselves regularly, and she has. And when we did the album, I mean, Mike flew over to do the album, and he literally had to do it in between, the Neighbours set. So really, we had no... There was no conversation where we sat down and said, do you like this song or do you like that song? And the thing about her was she was brilliant. She could pick the song up like that.
Brilliant. I should be to look at. I got that for my 13th birthday from my Auntie Brenda. It's my birthday present.
And still a great song.
Still a great song.
Yeah.
It's a crowd pleaser.
I mean, they're pop songs, but they last, don't they? Which is a mark of good music, really.
Yeah.
Absolutely is. Alex, let's have a quick look, shall we, at this news from the PA News Agency that fire has broken out 45 times in the Palace of Westminster in the past 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know how many people know this, but it's been this renovation thing has been going on for a very, very long time.
Costing a fortune as well.
Costing the taxpayer a fortune. And the reality is, the Palace of Westminster is on its last legs. It's rat-infested, there's cables hanging down everywhere, and it's a Notre Dame waiting to happen.
Well, that's why they've got to renovate it.
Absolutely. But the problem is MPs don't want to leave the Palace of Westminster for the grandeur and for, to say that... Because, we're saying we're talking up to potentially 17 years for the Lords, at least 2 decades, potentially, for the full renovation. So MPs want to sit in the House of Commons and they don't want to leave. So they're going to potentially charge us more for the privilege of them staying there.
It's also quite a hard sell to the public at the moment to say, well, we need to kind of do it. Everyone would be up in arms if it did burn to the ground. But to try and kind of renovate it now, it's a tricky one.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what?
It won't wait. Yeah, we don't care what they want to do because we haven't got time to talk about it.
There we go.
Thank you both. Good to see you. It's the weather.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A big change in the weather on the way. A spell of wind and rain today. That clears later. Then some even wetter and windier weather expected throughout Friday and Saturday with Storm Eowyn moving in. Now, this system at the start of today isn't Storm Eowyn, but it is going to bring a spell of heavy rain across the country for a few hours, along with some very gusty winds, 50, 60 mile-per-hour wind gusts for southern and western England, as well as Wales. But it does move through. Brighter skies follow for Northern Ireland, Wales and the south by the end of the day, whilst the wet weather remains across Scotland and eastern England. Eventually, though, that tends to push northeastwards with clearing skies across the southern half of the UK. We're going to see temperatures fall away, lighter winds as well. So a fine end to Thursday, but quite a number of showers into North Wales, Northern England and Northern Ireland. And the most unsettled weather is expected at 6 p.m. across Scotland, with showers falling as sleet and snow over the hills. It's going to be blustery as well as the day comes to a close across Scotland. But overnight, those winds tend to ease, and with clear spells, temperatures fall away. A touch of frost likely for eastern and northeastern parts of the country, but that's only ahead of a very fierce low that's moving in overnight. This is Storm Eowyn, likely to bring widespread disruption by the start of Friday. Heavy rain, especially in the southwest, a spell of hail snow for northern England and Scotland. But the biggest cause for concern are the winds widely across the UK, away from the southeast, 60 or even 70 mile-per-hour wind gusts. But for Irish Sea coasts, Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, through northern England and North Wales, the risk during the first half of Friday of 80 or 90 mile-per-hour wind gusts. That could cause serious disruption and damage in places.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In West Yorkshire, the A63 is closed each way along Selby Road in Micklefield after an accident yesterday. In Suffolk, the A14 is blocked westbound just before junction 54 at Sproughton, with queues from junction 55 near Ipswich, and also a lane closure westbound just after junction 52 at Claydon after an accident with delays there. On the M4 in Berkshire, 2 lanes are closed westbound just before junction 12 near Reading after an accident, and there are 2 lanes closed eastbound between junctions 5 and 4B towards the M25 after an accident with queues from junction 6 at Slough. In London, Lordship Lane in Wood Green is blocked by an accident. The A2 in Kent is partly blocked westbound by an accident between junctions 6 and 5 from Faversham to Sittingbourne, causing 3 miles of queues. On the M3 in Surrey, 2 lanes are closed northbound after an accident between junctions 3 and 2 towards the M25, causing queues. In West Sussex, the A272 is closed at Billingshurst after an accident.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
There's just 2 weeks left to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize so far. £50,000 in tax-free cash. How would you react if you won?
Oh my God.
That's a big surprise.
Amazing, just the best feeling ever.
I'm in shock. That is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
for another chance to win. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It's a day of reckoning for the Southport killer.
In just 2 hours, Axel Rudakubana will be sentenced for the murder of 3 little girls, Alistair Silver-Aguirre, BB King and Elsie Stankham.
Well, as a public inquiry begins to get to the root of how so many red flags were missed.
A measure of justice has been done, but for the victims, the injured and the affected, we must see a fundamental change in how Britain protects its citizens and its children.
Axel Rudakubana has shown absolutely no remorse for the horrific crimes that he committed, as well as being sentenced. This will be an opportunity for the families, through victim impact statements, to speak of the devastating loss they've suffered.
Shock new statistics: an estimated 1 million people living illegally in the UK, with up to 1 in 12 London residents thought to be illegal migrants.
Yes, 600,000 of those illegally just in the capital. That news comes as we hear that 1,000 people have crossed the channel illegally just since the start of this year.
A tornado warning comes into force for parts of England. Find out how you could be affected.
Ahead of Storm Eowyn, an unsettled day today before some very lively weather arrives during tomorrow. I'll have the very latest on the storm and what you can expect in the weather.
NIMBYs look away now because the government is overhauling planning rules in a bid to get Britain building. We'll be talking to the Minister for Housing in just a few minutes.
It's just got 9 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Good morning to you, good morning. I mean, it's been quite a day today because there's an awful lot going on and an awful lot around Axel Rudakubana, of course, that sentencing taking place today. It's a grim state of affairs, frankly. I mean, this young man has pleaded guilty to these 3 murders and producing ricin, which is a horrific chemical, and having an Al-Qaeda handbook. But he's not played any part in the court proceedings, has he? He's just stayed stum through all of this.
No, hasn't even answered to confirm his name, his address. The only time he did speak was when he gave that guilty plea on Monday, and even that shocked his own lawyers and shocked the courtroom. They thought it would have to go to a full trial that would last 10 weeks. Perhaps that is a relief for those families that they didn't have to hear those horrific details.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it will have been to an extent, but with that sentencing in 2 hours, will it bring the sense of justice that the families need? I mean, you've got to hope so. And we're going to talk to Mark White. He's at the court. We're going to talk to him in a few minutes about all of this. What a horrific day. Meanwhile, in other news, The Telegraph has revealed there are more than 1 million illegal migrants in the UK, 60% of those living in the capital.
Well, the study is actually commissioned by Thames Water, and it found that London is home to an estimated 585,000 illegal migrants.
Concerns over border control failures and pressure on public services are growing, but official figures from the Home Office are not publicly available.
Well, let's cross to GB News political correspondent Catherine Forster, who is live for us in Westminster. And this is a huge population underestimate, isn't it, Catherine? We're talking about 1 million people here.
Yes, 1 million people, and some experts are saying that these figures may be an underestimate. It was a study carried out on behalf of Thames Water, who obviously need to model, the numbers of people that are going to use water. So 600,000 estimated illegal people in London alone, 1 million across the country, and these figures not from the Home Office, because they don't publish any figures on this, and in fact they have said that some of this data is out of date. Apparently some of this data is based on figures back from 2017, before we even had that migrant surge that we've seen in the last few years across the Channel. And the Home Office have admitted that there is no officially recognised way of measuring just how many people are here illegally. So that Brexit pledge to take back control of our borders, clearly we have seen nothing of the sort. Now, the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, has said that these figures are deeply alarming and much more needs to be done. But of course, a lot of this has happened over 14 years of Conservative rule. Now, the new government say they're trying to get a grip on this. They say that they have already deported 16,400 people that were here illegally just in the first 6 months. They say that's the highest number in half a decade. But we hear those figures too, don't we, on illegal crossings in the Channel. 1,000 people have made that crossing in the first 3 weeks of 2025. Those numbers are going in the wrong direction. So the pressure on public services, enormous from this. And of course, we know too that many of the people that are here illegally are working in the black economy, something which isn't difficult to do in the UK because there's no ID cards. And that is something, again, I asked the Prime Minister about this on a trip to Rome where he was looking at illegal migration a couple of months ago. The government say that they're really trying to crack down on employers who are hiring people that don't have the right to work here. That'll be interesting to keep an eye on.
Catherine there for us in Westminster. Thank you very much.
I mean, one of the impacts of these levels of, well, the net migration, which you've seen, which is huge, and then you add in the illegal migration, these figures, which weirdly picked out by Thames Water and we've not had from the Home Office, is, of course, the impact that it has on society as a whole. And that's begged the question, what does the government do about it? Well, in the meantime, as they're not going to just get rid of people who shouldn't be here or here illegally, there's going to be no immediate action on that as far as we know. So how does the government respond to all of this? It's our poll of the day today. We've tried to put it in these terms of saying, should the Chancellor prioritise reducing debt or prioritise economic growth? Well, so far, 64% if you say economic growth should be the priority. 36% say reducing debt first. It's an interesting result.
It is very interesting, and you can continue voting until Martin Daubney's show later on this afternoon. To do so, just head to gbnews.com/poll, or you can scan the QR code on your screens now.
Right. Talking of money, how do you fancy getting yourself £50,000 absolutely tax-free? It's our biggest ever Great British giveaway, and it's coming to an end in a couple of weeks, so make sure you don't miss out. Here's how you enter.
Imagine how £50,000 in cash from us could make your new year go with a bang.
Hi, my name's Victoria. I won the Spring Great British giveaway. So the day we got the money in our bank account, everything just felt a lot lighter. I would say if you're thinking about entering, just enter.
For another chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, it's 9 minutes past 9, and in less than 2 hours, the child killer Axel Rudakubana will be sentenced for his crimes.
Alice De Silva Aguirre, BB King and Elsie Stankham were murdered in the vicious knife attack at a Taylor Swift-themed dance class last July.
Well, the 18-year-old pleaded guilty to their murders. Pleaded guilty to producing a biological toxin and being in possession of an Al-Qaeda training manual.
We're joined now by GB News Home and Security Editor Mark White. And as we say, Mark, that sentencing will take place in around 2 hours' time. But we're also, importantly, going to hear from the families today, aren't we?
Yes, indeed. Families, of course, of Elsie and Alice and BB will be giving victim impact statements, probably through lawyers, talking of the devastating loss that they've suffered. We'll also hear impact statements from the others. Remember, 8 other children were caught up and stabbed in this horrific attack, as well as 2 adults. So a lot of victim impact statements we're expecting to hear during the course of the day, as well as that prosecution summary of the case they would have put before the courts had Axel Rudakubana not pled guilty, surprisingly, on Monday, because this is a young man who has had absolute and utter contempt for the legal process in every hearing that I've been at since his arrest last year. He has refused to engage with that legal process. He's not spoken in court, even to confirm basic details like his name, date of birth and home address. He sat in the dock pulling a jumper up over his face, and that's what we got from him. And of course everyone was expecting that would continue to be the stance that he adopted throughout what could have been a 6 to 8 week trial of very harrowing evidence and difficult evidence for the families to sit through, and a very defiant and unrepentant young man in the dock. But of course on Monday we got the pleas to guilty, and the first time that you heard him actually speak, but that was a mumble even, pleading guilty to the 16 charges that were pressed on the indictment against him. And at least if there are some positives to come from such an awful case, it is that the families will be spared having to sit through that excruciating detail day after day for up to 8 weeks.
OK, Mark White there for us at Liverpool Crown Court. Thank you very much indeed. We're joined now by Minister of State for Housing and Planning, Matthew Pennycook, who joins us live from Westminster. Good to see you this morning, Mr Pennycook. And we are going to talk about Getting Britain Building, as that's what you're here to talk to us about today. But you have just heard that we were just speaking to our correspondent there outside Liverpool Crown Court. Axel Rudakubana will be sentenced at 11 a.m. today for murdering Alice, BB and Elsie, 6, 7 and 9 years old, one of the most harrowing cases that this country has ever seen. But he cannot, as the law stands, be handed down a whole life tariff because he was 17 he was 17 when he attacked these 3 girls. Does the law need to change that in cases as horrific as this one, that whole life orders can be handed down?
Well, you'll forgive me, I'm not going to speculate on the sentencing decision that's to come in a few hours' time. I think to do so would prejudice what is still a live judicial case. I think all of your viewers will understand what a sickening attack this was will feel angry at the fact that the sentencing guidelines constrain what the judge can do in this instance. And I think the most important thing today, and I think we shouldn't lose sight of this, is our thoughts should be with the families, not only of the 3 young girls who were so horrifically murdered, but with the other families who were affected. They are going through a very difficult time today, not least in giving testimony at the court, and our thoughts should be with them. But I can understand the anger that people will feel about those sentencing constraints that are in place.
Minister, the Prime Minister has talked about, NIMBYism when it comes to planning, to get Britain building again, get these houses up and what have you. Is there a concern, though, that if we sort of have NIMBYism as a bad term, as a term of abuse, that actually the will of people living up and down this country could be ignored?
Well, no one's saying that the views of local communities, local people up and down the country should be ignored. Under any of the changes we're making, people will still have a right to object to planning applications. They'll have a right to have a say to challenge the lawfulness of government decisions. What we're saying today is that as part of our plan for change, we've got to kickstart economic growth. We've got to streamline the delivery of critical national infrastructure that our country needs, whether that's energy, transport or aviation projects. We've already made a number of changes to national planning policy last year to aid with that objective. We're making further changes to the planning and infrastructure bill we're bringing forward in the coming months. And as part of that package, what we're saying today is that your ability to bring forward repeated and in some cases spurious judicial review permission requests shouldn't be allowed. We're going to reduce the number of those permission requests from 3 to 2 in most cases. And in cases where a judge says, look, this challenge has just no merit whatsoever, from 3 to 1. And that will get the delivery of critical national infrastructure speeded up, and that will have a real-world impact, because I hear, and I'm sure your viewers put it to you repeatedly, it is just too difficult to get anything built in this country, and the delays we see on some of these projects, not solely from judicial review, but that's part of it, are adding uncertainty, risk and delay into these projects. That means for working people across the country, ultimately higher energy bills, longer commutes, pressure on water supply and a number of other impacts. And we've got to take steps, and we are taking steps to change that fact.
And you're saying as part of this package that people are going to see lower bills in the long term, aren't you? But during the election, you've promised to cut energy bills by £300, yet, as you'll be aware, in October, £149 increase in the price cap then, so people are seeing bills on average £170 higher. You promised they'd come down by £300 when you took office. So why should the public believe you now?
Because they should look at the actions we are taking, including the announcement we've made today, which will help bring energy bills down by ensuring that this critical national infrastructure, and particularly in terms of the energy infrastructure that needs to come forward under our plan for change to get to clean power by 2030, that we get more timely decisions on these projects. That is the only way we're going to wean ourselves off a dependence on foreign energy sources and our exposure to volatile energy price spikes by having that homegrown clean energy coming forward. But for that to happen, we need more of those critical national infrastructure projects to happen in a more timely manner. And as I've said, it's not only about judicial review, but we know that judicial review challenges can add years and years to these cases. I mean, some of the examples I give you might illustrate things for your viewers. A47 National Highways project, a former Green Party councillor brought a challenge to that, which the judge in question said, and I quote, has no logical basis. That added 2 years to that project. East Anglia Wind Farms, a group opposed that project. Failed at every turn and was thrown out, added 2 years to that project. So we're not saying that people can't bring challenges against the lawfulness of government decisions, then they will still be able to under our changes. But we are saying that they shouldn't have repeated opportunities to do so. And in cases where a judge who's got expertise in this area just says, look, there's no merit whatsoever to this particular challenge, they shouldn't have more than one attempt. They'll still get that one attempt, but it shouldn't be repeat attempts to make spurious challenges that, as I've said, actually add to the time and cost of individual projects, and that will ultimately feed through into higher energy bills for working people across the country.
Can we talk about migration? There's this, you'll have seen it in the Telegraph, and they've sort of got it through this Thames Water survey that was carried out. 1 in 12 people in the capital are apparently illegal migrants. More than 1 million people in the country are illegal migrants. It leads to various questions, doesn't it? A, how has it got so bad? What are you doing about it? And why isn't the Home Office being transparent about these figures?
Well, we actually think those figures that are the basis for that story are out of date. There are no accurate figures of the number of illegal migrants in the country, and that is an issue that causes challenges in terms of bearing down on them. But again, I'd say to your viewers, judge us by our actions. We have removed over 16,000 people that have no right to be here in our short period in office. That is a far better record than under the previous government. And we have seen in this area 14 years of failure. No one disputes that we've got to bring down levels of both legal net migration, but also illegal migration. And we're taking steps to do that. And that is evidenced by the number and level of those deportations to date. And we'll build on that record. Because you're absolutely right. Illegal migration obviously does put pressure on the housing system, not necessarily homes, first homes to buy or social rented housing, but in many parts of the country in the private rented sector, of course it's a pressure that's added, but the way to solve that challenge is to bear down on the number of illegal migrants that are in this country and ensure they're deported in a timely manner, and that's precisely what we're doing.
Sadly, we're out of time, but we appreciate your time this morning, Minister. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, there's some analysis to the story in the Telegraph today saying that those numbers are actually based from numbers of 2017. So, in fact, before the large numbers of crossings that we've seen in recent years coming across the channel. So it could indeed, based on that analysis at least, be higher than the 1 million that we're talking about. But we did run out of time now with the Minister to put that to him. But we'll be talking to Andrew and Miriam, who are going to be with us. They are presenting from 9:30 this morning. We're going to find out what's coming up on the programme.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
We were talking earlier about the issue of Siri listening to you. Well, it's not just your own conversations being sort of harvested for data, but it's a problem with AI. So what seems to have happened yesterday is that Apple issued a alert saying that Luke Littler had won the darts before he had. I mean, imagine what would, if he then gone on to lose, how that would have looked. I mean, obviously, because he went on to win, at least they got the story right, but before it had happened. So what it seems to happen is that the AI farms existing stories, and what it has done, that's the alert. We can see the alert there now, and it also claiming that Brazilian tennis player Rafael Nadal had come out as gay when actually a different Brazilian tennis player was actually mentioned in the original story. So what it does is you see that's branded as BBC Sport. What the Apple AI system does is it farms alerts that it thinks people are getting from the source and then summarises them into one. That's going to be my question. Into one alert.
It looks to me like you would assume, OK, the BBC are reporting this.
Absolutely.
So the BBC News might be saying something else.
So it could happen to any news organisation.
This has highlighted a massive issue. I mean, having editorial judgment and quality control, because if this is going on, it's just contributing to the flow of misinformation. Yes. And we know that this is a problem on social media, people reporting false things. But if it seems to come from trusted news sources, that is a massive issue in credibility. I mean, if you had something like Reuters, who's a big news provider, doing this, You could hold people accountable, you could make changes, but when it's the AI doing it, I mean, what do? You're going to have to reprogram it in some way.
And if you just lost control, if you're a news source, you've lost control of what goes out, because it basically farms it, puts your logo on it and sends it out, even when it's nonsense.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Now, Britain's Newsroom is coming up at 9:30. Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates are here to tell us all about it.
What a joy.
Yes.
What have you got?
Well, lots, and of course we'll be covering the sentencing of Axel Rudakubana. I think
it happens within your time, doesn't it?
The hearing starts at 11. I'm not sure the sentence will be pronounced.
They tend to drag it out a bit. Sadly, he won't get a full life sentence.
We're just trying to ask the Minister about that.
He's not old enough, because he was 17.
At the time.
It's outrageous.
Do you think the law needs to change,
Yeah, I do.
give a whole life order
I do.
to potentially under 18s?
He's the embodiment of evil. Imagine.
Yes, but I mean, to be fair though, with his minimum tariff could be set very high.
40 years.
40 years.
Which is a long...
It's a long time, and then there's no guarantee you would get out after that.
No.
It is a really difficult one with children, isn't there? Because, of course, we have to have almost arbitrary cut-offs, like the criminal responsibility starts at 10, adulthood starts at 18. Of course, that's arbitrary, it's not that clear. But still, there is a difference between adults and children, isn't there?
Well, there is, but with cases like this, it does make you wonder. Right, you two, thank you. I know you have full coverage of that when it starts at 11 o'clock. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
That's it from us today. We're back from 6 a.m. tomorrow. Here's the weather.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A big change in the weather on the way. A spell of wind and rain today. That clears later. Then some even wetter and windier weather expected throughout Friday and Saturday, with Storm Eowyn moving in. Now, this system at the start of today isn't Storm Eowyn, but it is good to bring a spell of heavy rain across the country for a few hours, along with some very gusty winds, 50, 60 mile-per-hour wind gusts for southern and western England, as well as Wales. But it does move through. Brighter skies follow for Northern Ireland, Wales and the south by the end of the day, whilst the wet weather remains across Scotland and eastern England. Eventually, though, that tends to push northeastwards with clearing skies across the southern half of the UK. We're going to see temperatures fall away, lighter winds as well. So a fine end to Thursday, but quite a number of showers into North Wales, Northern England and Northern Ireland. And the most unsettled weather is expected at 6 p.m. across Scotland, with showers falling as sleet and snow over the hills. It's going to be blustery as well as the day comes to a close across Scotland. But overnight, those winds tend to ease, and with clear spells, temperatures fall away. A touch of frost likely for eastern and northeastern parts of the country, but that's only ahead of a very fierce low that's moving in overnight. This is Storm Eowyn, likely to bring widespread disruption by the start of Friday. Heavy rain, especially in the southwest, a spell of hail snow for northern England and Scotland. But the biggest cause for concern are the winds widely across the UK, away from the southeast, 60 or even 70 mile-per-hour wind gusts. But for Irish Sea coast, Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, through northern England and North Wales, the risk during the first half of Friday of 80 or 90 mile-per-hour wind gusts. That could cause serious disruption and damage in places.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M1 in West Yorkshire, the inside lanes closed southbound after an accident between junctions 41 and 40 towards Wakefield, causing delays. And also in West Yorkshire, the A63 is still closed each way along Selby Road in Micklefield after an accident yesterday afternoon. In Worcestershire, the A44 is partly blocked each way by an accident between Egdon and Sneachill, causing delays. On the M4 in Berkshire, 2 out of 4 lanes are closed westbound just before junction 12 at Reading after an accident with queues from junction 11. And there are 2 lanes closed eastbound between junctions 5 and 4B towards the M25 after an accident with delays delays there too. Now, on the M2 in Kent, there are westbound delays after an accident between junctions 6 and 5 from Faversham to Sittingbourne. And in West Sussex, the A272 remains closed in both directions along Coneyhurst Road in Billingshurst for emergency repairs. It's closed between Beck's Farm and the junction with Wooddale Lane. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Ironic article in The Guardian, Nick, caring about facts.
Yeah, this is Meta is ushering in a world without facts, says Nobel Peace Prize winner. And they just seem to give these Nobel Peace Prizes to anyone these days. It's Maria Ressa.
Not working.
Zuckerberg came out, and it was very bold. He said a few things. We're going to use community notes instead of fact-checkers. Fact-checkers in inverted commas, because it just means people pushing usually a specific viewpoint. Community notes seems to be a great system that X uses, so why not do that? I think that's great. He's going to reduce restrictions on topics like immigration and gender. Good, because I'm against censorship. He's going to push back on governments around the world that are going after American companies and pushing to censor more, which is great. He's also moving content moderation to Texas instead of California, which is banter. So now the cynical version is he's just realises we've got a new regime, it's the MAGA era, and I want to be mates with Trump, who said that I should, that if I interfere with the 2024 election, he should spend the rest of his life in prison. So he did mention, he might be a bit scared of that. He was involved in that, in Facebook suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop scandal, and I feel that he didn't like being a part of all that from watching interviews.
And also the suppression of arguments about gender and, and sex, what is biological sex and whatnot. You get banned for saying there are two sexes.
They're on the wrong side of this, and now he's correcting.